We're in. We're back in. We were talking about, so basically, we're the same age. We were talking about the halcyon days of 2016.
Oh
And we were
boy.
just talking about how great some of the creators were at that time. Like in my formative, what was I, college? In my formative years, having a guy like Stefan Molyneux just in a generational run that he was in with the white wall and the floating voice, where a woman would call and be like, I actually think I don't like my boyfriend, and he'd be like, you're a stupid bitch, and it was just like the most amazing. It's the most amazing stuff ever. It really got you thinking. It really got you thinking.
I remember when back in the day, like before he became really popular, because I don't know, you guys, you said they're the same age. I'm like 33. I'm gonna be 33. So I remember when Steph just went by StephBot, and like remember when YouTube like the categories were really popular, like people cared about the categories. Every day in politics and life was Stefan Molyneux on the right and StephBot and Young Turks on the left. That was like the two options for politics then.
The best.
Yeah.
Just the best. It's like when boomers are like, oh, kids don't have really good toys anymore because they had the robots in the boxing ring. Yeah, well, we had the Steven Crowder waterboarding tournament. Just the best. Just the best stuff ever. Just the best thing ever.
I've told this to Gio, but like, because when I was in college at the time, it was my car was like 3 different news sources, and it was going to be This Week in Stupid, from Sargon. Stefan Molyneux would also be, it was really all the YouTube stuff when they were still on the air. And then it would be Rush Limbaugh on the EIB network. And then just to hear what the liberals were saying as I was driving off work to go to evening classes, it was All Things Considered on NPR. And I watched and listened in real time as Trump took over. And
that's a wonky start. Yeah.
When I was doing my philosophy MA, I remember there was this kid and he was an undergrad, and he would talk to me, and he's like, you know this guy Nick Land? And he's like, I read Thirst, and he would quote Thirst for Annihilation. And years later, he randomly DMs me. He's like, Gio, I can't believe I knew out of everybody. And Gamergate was going on at this time as well. But then years later, he DM'd me. He's like, Gio, out of all the people I knew one day that you were going to be like mutuals on Twitter with Nick Land. And I'm like, I fucking made it right there. Because anyways, even like being on, finally we're on Timeline Earth. Like I was thinking about today, I was doing some plein air painting, and I was thinking about like tonight, and I'm like, man, this is like, I had this feeling, like very rare moments, like when I was on BTR, there was a few moments like that where it's like stuff you're doing online. It's like, it makes you feel alive. You know what I mean? It makes you feel
this is what it's all about.
Hip and cool and part of this moment. But then you realize, oh, we're just a bunch of fucking spurgs in our
we are old troons. Just a bunch of old troons.
Yeah, exactly. But
there's nothing will beat those days, man. I mean, those were the mirthful days of the early Trump.
I just feel like this requires like a nostalgia, like back in my day.
There you go.
Yeah, the mirth. Like we were talking about that on the Halloween special, the lack of mirth. Like you see it nowadays. Like after Tucker had Milo on, like all these people, like the fucking knives are out for everybody, and everyone hates each other, and they're trying to climb the take seller economy, and they're really going at it. But it's like me and Prude, like we're sort of like going back here, and we're like, like we do our own thing, and it is what it is, and it's like, I don't know, man. People are fucked. Like you got to remember, people don't. Okay, if you're an old troon like I am, if you're an old head, then I don't know if I could say that word soon anymore, the T word. But anyways, if you're an old head, you remember, like back in the day, we were kind of like United Front, like Frog Twitter. Everybody knew each other. Everyone was in the same DMs, DM groups. Everybody. Like there were tensions, but like, then things blow up and there's money, whatever little
Tower of Babel.
Tower of Babel, exactly.
We got too close. We got too close.
That's exactly. We got too close. We got
we got too close to the celestial kingdom.
Yeah, our balls were cut off, some people, and then, they get the $7,000 and the trip, and I'm not saying
It was when
anything.
it was when Joe Rogan had Alex Jones on that first time, episode
Yeah.
700, whatever, or whatever it was. That was the moment where it was like, okay, we've culturally peaked. We've reached the golden
It's
emperor stage of our. That's it. Yeah. And we didn't realize it. We didn't realize that. That was the moment that the continent that held Atlantis tipped back to the sea, and we were all looking at the ocean. And it happened.
That's when Lot's wife looked back in anger. That's when it was over.
It was over. It was an eschatological moment, that Joe Rogan episode with Alex Jones on it. There was something very powerful there. And now, I'm so where did you, Gio, where did you come out of? Because Prudentialist, you said you came out of already a kind of like mainstream right politic early. I mean, talking 2016. So Gio, where did you come from? Were you in, what was your clique, I guess?
Okay, but True, did you want to go first, True?
Oh, I mean, he and I were talking before we hit record. I'll let you go, and then I'll recap.
Oh yeah, rehash it. I never know when I hit the record button, but
first, then, because I'm a fucking blowhard. I can talk. You go ahead.
But no, like,
don't take too long. He goes, don't take too long.
I know. So no, I was before we recorded.
I didn't even realize I'm an asshole. Rude.
It's okay. I make a very honest effort to remind you. No, so as I was telling Birdo before we hit record, like my radicalization, I think, kind of, or whatever you want to call it, just whatever political group that you were in. Like, I wasn't on Twitter, I wasn't podcasting. I did not get started podcasting and doing all this stuff until 2020. So right before the election. But I had been I would be what you would call a long-time listener, first-time caller. But I had been involved in conservative politics since I was still in like high school. I was the annoying kid that you would be like, oh God, someone fucking kill this kid for wanting to like argue and debate shit over like, and to be purposefully like a contrarian little smarmy asshole. Cause it was fun to argue about the right. And from, conservative positions, I had a student subscription to like the Wall Street Journal, The Economist, and I was involved in my county's GOP at the time. I was like Brylan Hollyhan, but without being a faggot. And so, but I mean, like, I didn't go on speaking tours or anything like that. But anyways, I was involved in like precinct stuff. I went to like the state convention. I met a lot of who's who's. I met Alan West. I've met Ted Cruz. I met some of the Bushes. Like, just, it was like a little like 18-year-old, like, striver. And then you kind of find out how fake and gay everything kind of is, or at least at that time it was. Like, because I remember all those songs that, oh man, who did the fucking I'm on the Coke again one, making fun of TPUSA. I'm literally looking it up.
Do you remember the Proud Boys, Ooh Ooh Ooh? Do you remember that song?
I do, yeah. Man. Yeah, it was a TPUSA thing. I don't remember who did it.
This is like diesel flavored levels of slop, like
it was good parody. It was good parody. But like, so as I was saying, like I got involved phone banking in the 2016 election when I was in college. I was a Rand Paul supporter initially. I'm very much the opposite of who I was back then. I had a much more stronger libertarian streak, but I mean, who doesn't from that kind of era? And not a religious man at all. And then campaigned for Rand Paul, did some phone banking, did some online stuff, with mail, email chains and things like that, trying to help fundraise. He drops out, and then I'm like, well, Trump's really the only other option here because he pisses everybody I don't like off. So I went from there. The last bit of politicking I did with like the Republican Party was Ted Cruz's campaign when he went against O'Rourke in 2018. I phone banked with him and just kind of like watched, because at the time I lived in El Paso, so it was like crazy to watch like my congressman have like this weird home field advantage. And I'm like, this is such a disaster. But it's like the one white guy on the train, and you're like, well, at least I'm not speaking German. And it's just like, oh, what a nightmare. But so like, because I lived in that area, in that part of the state during the 2016 era, it was like radicalizing in real time. And then you got to appreciate all of the glorious nectar of like early online right-wing creators when they were still on YouTube. Like I remember when...
So that was like liberal tears.
I remember Woes. I discovered Semiagog through Millennial Woes' Millennial. I think it was like 2017 that he first had Semiagog on. I remember the Iconoclast getting taken off YouTube. Huge Stefan Molyneux fan. And as I had said earlier, like when I would like go to school and go to work, it would be like Rush Limbaugh, This Week in Stupid, and, NPR's All Things Considered. And it was just wild to watch any sort of quote unquote civility of the American political class disappear when someone had at least the semblance to say, you know what, Rosie O'Donnell is ugly. These people are rapists and we should build a wall. And it was like, I'm sold. I'm sold.
Yeah, that was so good. I mean, that was exactly what needed to happen at the perfect time.
Yeah. Rule 1, attack, attack, attack. So,
you can't manufacture that stuff. I mean, that is, and it seems like so let me ask you this question, Prudentialist. If you had to compare the slop from back then versus the slop today, what would you say is the main difference? Because I'll just as the setup, I am a major slop consumer of all kinds of right-wing slop, all kinds of just conservative slop generally. I love it. It's like a guilty pleasure to me. But even I have to say there's something imperceptible maybe, but there's something very different. And it seems like you were in the world of that kind of thing being very central to part of the messaging. So what would you say is the difference?
I would definitely say it's just more refined nowadays. Like, it's so easy, I think, for a lot of people to take advantage for what's already out there. Like, there are some tweets. So, like, for instance, someone had posted this. This was like 2 years ago, Gio. I think you remember it, where it was like that Chinese guy or the guy who acts like he's like a Chinese exchange student, and he's like shitting on like America's like racial politics, and he's like seeing something happen, and he was like, "Oh, this is so good," or whatever. And it's like someone just quote tweeted that, and it's like you have to explain like 800 hours of internet lore to
yeah.
explain this tweet. You don't need 800 hours of internet lore anymore because it's so ubiquitous. Like, on TikTok and Instagram, it's so pervasive. I mean, I think it's a little less, it doesn't have the same sort of original artistic quality to it. I mean, there are some very good exceptions to that. Like, I think Nightmare Friend and
Chaos Reigns.
Yeah, Chaos Reigns.
Nightmare
and
Friend is one of the
Pain.
scariest accounts on X.
Well, and then there's another person who I won't
sweetheart.
mention, but actually, I BRG, you know who I'm talking about, like the well-known great anime editor who has no problem doxing his enemies with great edits. But I think the key thing out of all of it now is that back then, like, it was all new. Like, it's hard to explain to people who weren't there that, like, the future president of the United States is walking on stage, and do you hear the people sing from Les Mis is playing? And it's less deplorables, and there's a fucking Pepe on the wall. Like, you can't explain that to a Zoomer who's like, did you see this really cool Hyperborea edit on Instagram? And it's like, no, because I'm not on Instagram. But secondly, like, you weren't there for it. So I think that's just a big part of it. But I mean, at the end of the day, these things are now just so ubiquitous. Like, what else can I say? It's everywhere. Whereas back then, like,
jangling.
it was such a small, like you said, like, everybody knew everybody back then. And if you weren't there, then it's kind of hard to realize it. Like, there are so many great moments that just feel like a million years ago now. Like, the go-to example I use is that if you want to feel old, you can find the Ben Garrison comic of Anita Sarkeesian calling Carl Benjamin a garbage human person at VidCon. And it's like, that video has been taken down from Carl's channel, but like, you can find that.
That's
picture.
like something you'd find in the caves of Qumran, like in 1,000 years. You would pull it back and be like,
it was just a smaller
oh,
world
man.
back then. That's what it was.
Yeah. All right. Can I put it to you this way? So the Oxford English Dictionary describes mirth primarily as, quote, amusement, especially as expressed in laughter. Now, I would say that's an optimistic definition. When I attacked mirth, as you mentioned, Gio, on the Halloween special, I noticed exactly what you just described. Was that there's no sense that what we are being fed, our slop, it has no sense of newness. Still authenticity, still all the other thing, but there was a spice.
It's a simulacra.
That's missing. That's what it is. It is. But it's so visceral for me because I watched a bunch of slop videos from 2016, like a week ago. And then I consistently watch slop today. And the difference was, even watching the stuff from 2016, it still feels new, still feels good, still feels fresh. So it's not even that it was just good back then, it's still good today. So it's more than just it being a been there, done that. It really is that the new stuff has some kind of Cal Arts style over it. There's just like a difference. It's like you fed the old stuff through that ChatGPT version that was making everything the color of mustard, and that's what you kind of get now. It's like a mustard flavored version of the good stuff from 2016. And that's what I thought was bad about Mirth. Now, Gio, where did you come from? What got you started to being, I guess, where we all are today?
Boy, that's a long journey. So I was like similar, like I guess all of us were like the asshole debate kid in civics or politics class. But when I went to university, I had been a bit acquainted with all this stuff, and I had gotten into like the more, I guess you could say, like the throne and altar or the esoteric side of the NRX blog sphere. Although I would never label myself as like quote unquote neo-reactionary the way that like someone like Molbug would. But I had been like a new ager for so long. I was like, like prude. I was a libertarian. I was like into a lot of different like, like ANCAP stuff. Although like now I'm kind of like the total opposite, which, many such cases.
Were
So
you like a Discord ANCAP debate guy?
not really, like, a bit in my like, in school and all that, but then, like, what happened was with me is that I started getting into all of this other type of stuff because I was always, very interested in, like, political theory and Eastern philosophy and stuff, and that would then later become my degrees. And then when I was in university, I had this class on the Frankfurt School, and I ended up writing this essay that became like one of this foundational moments, which I'll explain why. I wrote this essay that was comparing it tears me up a little bit because the guy died recently. But I was listening to Common Filth, God rest his soul. He recently passed away, very unfortunate. He was young. And I was listening to Common Filth, and he mentioned this video artist called Nobody TM. This was like back in 2013, 2014. And I was like immediately back when the website was still around, all you could find archives on the internet of all the videos. I started binging this like weirdo video art because I started becoming an artist as well around the same time. And I was like just transfixed, right? Because it clicked for me all the stuff I was reading about aesthetic theory and Eastern philosophy and everything, right? So then I wrote this essay in my Frankfurt School class. It was called Beholding a New Pale Horse. It was linking together like Horkheimer and Adorno with Michel Foucault. And at the very end, I talk about this essay I came across researching Nobody TM by Adam Wallace, who then later became a little bit of a friend of mine. Then he like totally left the internet because he was like, people don't realize this. Adam Wallace was actually just as popular at one point as someone like Millennial Woes or Richard Spencer, but he like kind of saw the way things were going in the British scene and he left. So he had this website called West Coast Reactionaries, and he wrote this essay on Nobody TM that I later cited in my paper. It's called, you could still find it. It's called Nobody TM Postmodern Anti-Modernism. And I wrote about how like video art can disrupt power. And I kind of like did a little comparison between Nobody TM and Namjoon Pike and other video artists. And then I saw that there was an email link on the website. And so I emailed Nobody TM just out of the blue. I'm like, well, whatever, right? Like, if it, I was like kind of fucked up in my personal life for health reasons and whatever. And and so I'm like, you know what? I have nothing to lose. I don't know what I'm going to do after university. There's no hope. Things were changing at this time. This was like after Gamergate a little bit. I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm ever going to get a PhD. So fuck it. I emailed him. I immediately after a few days got a response, and he said, "This article is amazing. I want to put it on my website, and Adam Wallace wants to talk to you." I'm like, fuck, sure. Because I've been reading all these guys like Adam Wallace and Mark Citadel and Doug Smythe and all the guys that would then later go into Thermidor magazine. And so I had written, then he's like, I want you as a writer. And so I started writing these articles, and some of the early stuff wasn't that great, but whatever. And then when West Coast Reactionaries fell, then PT Carlo was starting this Thermidor magazine thing. And he's like, we want to be like an alternative to like the alt-right and like the like alt-right at the time, like all the people that would later become like sort of adjacent to like conservatism TM or like Claremont people. And we want to have that like spirit of like Salafor, my posting career intellectualism that wasn't just like, because you have to realize this is like Charlottesville was like almost down the pipe at this time, Unite the Right. So to me, I was like, well, I'm in Canada and things are getting really bad because Trudeau just got elected. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. That sounds great to me, because I don't want to be blah, 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 whatever. And then I started writing for Thermidor, and Thermidor became this like big thing. And, then that folded and then PT crashed out. I'm not going to get into it, but yeah. And so then COVID happened, and I I had like flirted with like doing the podcast thing, and then I discovered that I was probably a bit better with audio than I am with written form. And I had this pretense to being a writer, but then I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? And then I had this art thing going on. And then all of a sudden I think Lev invited me to break the rules. And I just kind of like never left because people really liked me. I'm like, wow, this is great. And back in the day, this was like peak, like lockdown COVID. It was like
20, 21, something like that? I
2020,
barely
yeah,
remember.
2019, 2020, 21.
2020.
And BTR was like, like all the stuff you see with Twitter Spaces or people nowadays. Like, I like to think that for all of the bullshit that me and Lev, we had a falling out, blah blah blah. We kind of were like Twitter on YouTube. Like, we were like Twitter on live stream. We would have
Yeah.
like 12 different Spurgs, like 12 anons.
Mhm.
And we had like a wall of sound, and I was getting into it. And then we got a bit more like curated, a bit like we'd have bigger guests. And it was great. And that's how we started podcasting. And then when Russia Ukraine war happened, and for reasons I probably shouldn't get into, me and Lev had a huge disagreement, a huge falling out. And then I went on my own. And before that, though, before I went on my own, because I remember Prude would always come on, and me and Prude sort of had the moment where we would like look at each other down the podcasting, StreamYard
And we were like,
aisle.
can you believe this guy?
Yeah, yeah. And then me and Prude, we had this thing where we're like, let's do shit together, right? Because Prude had his channel, and he was like a little bit considered part of the AA sphere, but then he sort of got away from that and he became his own man. And I was becoming my own man with what I was doing with Content Minded after I fell out with Lev. And I had this huge like not Twitter, I had this huge YouTube stream the night it happened. And then another guy, God rest his soul. I know a lot of people don't like him, but then Gonzalo Lira, Coach Red Pill, he's like, put me on your show. And he came on, he gave me this great advice. He sort of like did the Roy Cohen, like 3 rules of success sort of thing. And I'll never forget that. And that's how I started Content Minded. And that's how me and Prude also started Digital Archipelago, because I had this huge falling out with Lev. He kind of rat fucked me. And it's like, whatever, but I look at it now 3 years down the line. I don't really regret it because me and Lev, we did have a lot of good moments. And even though like we had a falling out, we had a disagree, whatever, who cares? It's like, I appreciate that I got to really experience the whole like debate and interview format. And it really grew I could spread my wings. And I did interact with a lot of great people on BTR. And so as much as I have like personal, whatever grievance, I'll never take that away from Break the Rules and Lab. It's like we did generally have a lot of great moments. And I don't know, man, like I guess I'm naturally conciliatory. That's my problem. Like I should be like a bastard, that's my problem, is that I
Yeah,
can't
that's
like
the move.
I want to be like this. I said this recently with Kino Corno. It's like, I wanted to be like this cantankerous asshole, like Vincent Gallo, that type of like, I'm a genius, but I hate everybody. It's like, get the fuck away from me. But because like the crowd
Yeah.
killing stuff's really popular with people. Like, look at Nick Fuentes, for example. And it's like, I can't do that though. I can't, like, there's so much shit I want to say about people. I want to be an asshole, but I can't, you know? Maybe it's just a defense mechanism, who fucking knows? But like, yeah, so that's my origin story. And that's how I'm here, and I'm trying to transition more to like arts and culture and away from like political hot takes. But
Trying to
political
get
hot
away
takes,
from politics. Yeah.
yeah,
Trying to
but
get
like it's
away.
so
Oh my
addicting. It's
God.
so it's so fucking addicting
But
though,
it's just, but it
Birdo.
is like, it's really, it's running its course. It
It is
really
running. That's
is.
yeah,
It's
exactly. Yeah,
running its course, and we need something crazy needs to happen that kicks off
exactly.
5
Speaking of
months of
which,
content.
I have to get this off the chest before you get to the real content. I know, like, I don't mean this as an asshole way. I don't mean any offense, Birdo. But okay, so, Bird, you know what I'm gonna say. You know what I'm gonna say.
I have
Uh,
no idea. I'm just
the
here.
f-
I'm
the
just
first
listening.
time, the first time I started listening to Timeline Earth, I'm like, is Birdo? Does he uncannily sound like Jim Norton? I'm like,
I love
fuck,
Jim
man.
Norton.
I no, but I thought you'd be offended though, because like Jim Norton.
No. I am a Opie and Anthony guy, actually. Opie and Anthony, I always listen to Opie and Anthony.
Yeah,
And
oh, yeah.
Jim Norton is like, dude, Jim Norton's like the best
Jim Norton writes the
radio
Opie.
guy.
Yeah,
He's like the
I'm like,
best radio guy. Thank you.
no, but I'm like, you sound
I
exactly
like
like
that you
Jim
went, looked
Norton.
at Fruit and went, you know what I'm going to say. And he goes, I have no idea what you're going to say. And I'm here going, am I about to get attacked?
I'm waiting for it, but like, no, like, honestly, that is 90% of the show. Is
Ruin my day?
oh, maybe you never know. That's the thing, and that's sort of the best part is that no one knows, and
I
it
remember
makes for a
one
fun.
time.
It makes for a fun
Yeah,
dynamic because at the end of the day, like in part, especially because like so much of the show is like Gio and I are not all like because we were both doing our own thing. I have a day job. He and I are not always in sync for what we want to do or talk about. So like
yeah.
most of the time, no one has a clue what the hell the show is going to be about until like the next like the day before or like that morning.
Oh man.
I don't plan either. I don't think I could, honestly. That's kind of what me and Carr have. Carr does not engage with the internet for the whole week, and then he logs in to do the recording, and I go, okay, here's what
That's the
happened.
best way to
That's
do
actually
it.
how it started. I feel like that's actually how it started. It's, you know,
It
that
really
whole time.
it's become a tagline for the show where we're like we're on Twitter so the audience doesn't have to be.
Yeah, that's was the
Yeah.
point of the news was basically, you know, the concept of the news was to kind of be like, hey, you don't need to look for news. We're going to tell you the only stuff that you're going to want to hear about. And it kind of turned into like nobody wants to hear about anything. Like no, there was nothing worth hearing about. And that's what I was going to say is while you're explaining your backstory, Gio, I'm going, at what point is he going to mention how like I don't know, the Dangerous Faggot tour was like the thing where he went, this is top content. And because where I came from, and it's interesting because the both of you are saying you more or less started doing the podcasting thing around 2020. And I think if I'm not mistaken, I go back to like 2017,
Well, with the
2016,
writing, I go back to like
2017.
2014. Yeah, so I was like newer to the podcast thing, but I remember the Dangerous Epsilon tour. I remember when that was
Yeah,
going on. Yeah.
it's just thinking back to that time is like having narrated. I mean, I there may be an episode out there because my sort of red pill moment, if you will, was I remember the He Will Not Divide Us event that was
Oh
taking
yes.
place
Oh yeah.
at the Museum of the Moving Image in Astoria, Queens. And I lived a walk away. So I was like, I gotta go and see what's going on there. And I went down there with a couple of friends. And the first thing is, you go into this lot that's wide open and entirely painted in white. And there's one brick wall, and out of the brick wall is the camera or the TV or whatever it was. And I remember walking up to it, and there was like 10 or 15 people who were dawdling around. And there was one guy, black guy, big guy with dreadlocks and a book. And it looked like a Latin Vulgate. Like it was a gigantic, thick-leafed book with a leather backing. And in it was, I can only assume, written in red ink, was this man's screed. It was a poems that he was reading. And it was like, And that day, the colonizer, and and he's going off and he's reading. I mean, the guy is like still standing, reading this book at the camera. And I remember walking up, not kind of behind him, and I swear to you, I will always remember this. I'm kind of behind him, and I pull up next to this guy, redhead. His eyes are very close together, and he did appear to have some kind of thing going on, maybe an autism or something. Because the first question I asked was, "That book is really long. Is that all stuff he's written?" And the guy looks at me, I'm trying to remember what he said. The guy looks at me and he goes, "He's been going for an hour." That's what he said. He's been going for an hour.
You're witnessing history right there. That was like, yeah.
So I remember this, and I'm going, just thinking about it now and today, I don't think I've ever told that story on the podcast before because the origins never came up. But that moment, I think for me, stands out as the moment where I went, this is the culture war right here. What's happening right now is the culture war. And it was on the ground, and we called it, what's funny is before we had the terminology culture war, we called it the meme war. At least where I was at, we called it the meme war. And that spirit of it made a lot more sense for what it was, because like a week after I went, Steven Crowder was there. And Steven Crowder had the table set up at the event at the He Will Not Divide Us. He had the table set up, and it was like one of the first Steven Crowder events where he would set the table up and talk to random libtards. And so I remember being there like a week before, and then Steven Crowder is there, and I'm like, wow, I was a part of the meme war. From that day, I felt like I was a meme war veteran. And really, I think that's what we need. And much ado about order these days on the right. Everybody loves order and everybody loves a stable society, and I respect that. But I'll tell you, being a 21-year-old in that time with Shia LaBeouf's little camera and this demonically possessed guy reading the 25th page of 400 pages of his poetry, and he's going to get through all of it in one night. There's a Dionysian madness there that really made the whole thing worth living. And I feel like now I feel gooned out. I feel like I can't even catch the mirth, but I'm starting to suspect it's because of everything around me. I'm ready for mirth. I know I am. It's starting to feel like the simulacrum, like you said, around us we are in never goon mode. And where I would comfortably like to be would be somewhere in that white lot with all the people and the crazy guy staring into the camera, and he's on hour 2 of hour 15 of his audiobook. And that was living. And I know you can't build a society on that, but we really need that. And I think it was Karl Marx who said the second revolution is always a parody of the first, and BLM happened. And that was like the version of what was going on in 2016. The BLM riots happened, and that was like, okay, what if we took all of the fun out of this whole thing and actually we just made it like the next version of the culture wars 9/11
Chinese?
Yeah, and it was just a real bummer. I mean, I remember those times, and it was a real bummer.
Oh yeah, you know what's so funny about He Will Not Divide Us is that was one of the greatest feats of unintentional transgressive right-wing art that it ever was. And the thing is, it was made by one of the most despicable pieces of shit ever in human history.
Are you talking about Shia LaBeouf?
Turner, not Shia. Oh, okay. No, Shia LaBeouf's face. No, Luke Turner organized this thing, and he was a failed rich kid artist. But his greatest work of art is something that he loathes and hates and despises to this day. That he had to like go crazy and dox a bunch of frogs in the art world in New York. And he made He Will Not Divide Us, and nobody will remember that as a form of like protest art against Trump. And they will always remember it as
literally cultural consciousness.
Exactly. Transgressive meme, frog cultural contrast. And that is his legacy. He Will Not Divide Us. And
So
I
good.
love the fact that Luke Turner will live to his dying day knowing that he created one of the best right-wing meme culture war set pieces ever in human history. And to me, like, that's like the most deserving fate, like a turbo doxer libtard creating something that he loathes and despises that gave the right wing so much cultural cachet. So many memes came from He Will Not Divide Us.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And now we have the
And then
Rizzler.
Shia LaBeouf became based. He became a trad cat.
He did. That's
So,
right.
yeah.
That's right. He became Padre Pio, and then it was all over. He lives a good life now.
Right now.
That was another.
Yeah.
That was another powerful cultural moment. Actually, that meme.
Delightfully
That
groiperous.
There's
yeah.
one, Birdo, there's one tweet I remember, and I pray to God he comes back to it, but there was this tweet by Menoquion 4. This is like old school frog Twitter lore. He had this tweet. He said, 2016 will forever live in the annals of history. And ever since then, we will always be chasing that moment of 2016. It's like our summer of love. It will be our curse and it will be our blessing. I'm paraphrasing, but like from that moment on, it's like the online right has always lived in the aura of this great awakening of 2016. And even though like the material conditions of like the Trump administration or these, take sellers, even though like maybe they failed or the mission was less sexy and transgressive that we wanted it to be, it's like we still have this like antediluvian time of 2016 that we're always like trying to chase the dragon.
Right.
And
Right. Well,
yeah,
we need to build
yeah,
myths off of it, and we'll do
exactly.
very well. We just need myths off of that, and we could build a whole
I
empire
think
based
the
on those
dragon
events.
chasing's the best analogy that you can give because I mean, for anyone who was like 18 through 21, it was just like you just got sold into white slavery, and some asshole just gave you like a whole spoonful of black tar heroin, and you're like, no, I understand that I will serve this entire system for the rest of my life. Like we've been
Yeah.
ideologically trafficked into believing that like this is the only way to exist. And like, yeah, like the mission, quote unquote, has kind of changed, or the names and faces are all but gone. Like I just got in the mail yesterday Lauren Southern's book, and it's wild to think that like, oh yeah,
Speaking of white
Lauren's
slavery,
well, yeah, speaking of white slavery, I mean, like that's why you notice the things that I put down, Gio, and I'm always thankful for that. But like, I started reading it, and I'm like, it's kind of funny because like this woman for me is always going to be associated with like her South African farmer documentary and being the running gag on Murdoch for Dr. Murdoch's like perpetual like one-itis that he can never get with. And that show has been
She
more
was
vindicated.
best girl for years.
She was best girl for many
remember
years.
she had the porcupine?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
It's kinda
hedgehog. No, it was a
The
hedgehog, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like that song by Necro and Ill Bill, White Slavery. He's like wigging out on a shit-stained mattress in a puddle of pee, selling your asshole for a bundle of D. Like, yes, yeah.
It's exactly
That's
like that,
unironically
actually.
like, yeah. That's like unironically like the state that we're in right now. Like our ass is being sold for a bundle of D. Like, and then like,
Now I don't know about you, but I'm not blackpilling. I think we'll be back one day. It's just it's a gift.
Yeah.
We need to wait for the gift to show up. We're gonna be back. We're gonna be back.
But what were you mentioning about Lauren Southern?
I was reading her book and I'm hearing her side of the story, and it's just like her attempts at reform or whatever, or even just trying to be like, listen, I was part of this like system that like spat me up and chewed me out. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, Lauren's got to be like late 30s, older millennial. No, she's closer to like my age and Birdo's age than anything else. And that kind of took me for a second because I was
drama
like,
queen.
just to be, yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, if there was ever going to be a remake of Between Two Ferns, like right wing online politics, with, like between two tags, but the worst part about it all is that like, I can understand how like that could chew you up and eat you alive because like we don't. I kind of want there as gay as it sounds. Like, I would love there to be like a meme war kind of commemorative event because
like the flower wars of the Aztec Empire. We all just agree to fight one another,
and everything else is kind of insane to consider. Where it's just like even like every era has a moment that totally buck breaks somebody's mind. Like COVID destroyed a lot of people's brains, and now October 7th has done the same thing. The same thing with like the Russian-Ukraine war, where
Oh
it's
yeah.
like you've allowed, I think, in a lot of ways, people's like personal pet projects for politics to overcome why you're on this side of things to begin with, which is like you've allowed your like hatred of a particular group or particular ordeal of civility to overtake. Like, you're here because you got involved because you kind of became awake to how bad things were. And
Oh yeah.
I think that you can never let your hatred for a personal pet project or your desire to double down and be quote unquote correct on something to overpower the fact that, like, we either all hang together or we will all assuredly hang separately. And for me, it's always like I can dislike a group or dislike certain politics, but at the end of the day, I have to be more pro my guys, pro my people than anything else. Because if not, I will drive myself fucking insane,
Yeah.
and then you turn into every other psychic casualty. And it's kind of funny when you look back on the timeline, even in the short amount of time I've been online, like, remember when everyone was just like arguing over when the invasion would happen, or even yet, like, remember when like Trump shut down the border when COVID first happened, and it was like right before Malamim got banned because he was like, "Wow, it turns out this like fake Chinese virus was going to be the way that we like get to shut the border down." He's just like, "Thank you, China. This is so great." And then all of a sudden he's banned off YouTube, and then like you
Yeah.
kind of became aware that the mirth ended. Right? Like everything, we
Chinese
stopped laughing.
whispers
We stopped
ended the
laughing.
mirth. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but the
Yeah,
thing
we
is about
really
Lauren
did.
Southern is that, like, one thing I will say about Lauren Southern is that I should buy her book and complete this article I wrote. I have like half of it done. It was a year or two ago. I had this article called "The Culture War Outlaw Mud Show." For those who know, that's a wrestling term for like smaller independent rival promotions that were like, run pretty janky fly by night ish, right? And that's like the Jim Cornette term, outlaw mud show. Because I remember watching her documentary when she came back after her, like, whatever, her legal case was done. And she was dropping all this hot goss on people like Milo and whoever, all the people she interacted with, and Tommy Robinson and that gay twink that was Tommy's assistant, who's now like this deranged, genocidal, anti-Russia phobe, Kalen, whatever his stupid fucking name is. But like, he like, is a Ukraine show. So she was like dropping this hot goss, but then she was talking about this tour her and Stefan Molyneux did in Australia with this like janky promoter. And the vibe of it was that they didn't like, it was sponsored by Rebel News, and everybody knows how notorious Ezra Levant is for like fucking people over, all these celebs he fostered. And it was very much like this culture war outlaw mud show where nobody knew what they were doing. It was so new, like Steven Crowder and Gamergate and Sargon and Stefan and Norrin Southern and Rebel News. It's
You
like
could have never
they
imagined Steven Crowder being shot in the face
Yeah,
back
yeah,
then.
exactly, yeah. And so, like, it was, like, this culmination of, like, the first time the right wing in, like, 50 to 60 to 100 years had this, like, outsider cultural element that was underground, that nobody knew what the fuck they were doing, and it's like they
Yeah.
then proceeded to do these things in public, and nobody knew what they're doing, and this was way before, like, streaming and all that, and I'm like, "Man, that's crazy how we have like a bricolage of people that are in these like different, political ecospheres. But this was like babe in the woods pioneer territory for the right wing online. And like nobody had thought like, okay, you can take what people have been talking about online for like the better part of 20 years and put it in real life and see what happens. Like
Mhm.
in some ways, Lauren Southern was like one of the first people to do this. And it's like, we all hate on her now for good reason, but like it was so crazy thinking about it that way. And now, like, because
Yeah,
now we have so many other things, but yeah, yes.
she's become very cringe. I distinctly recall, you know what's funny about it? I'll be honest. I've always watched Slop, including all of the greatest hits from 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever watched anything with Lauren Southern in it, on it, or whatever. And yet, somehow, she occupied. There was this woman, I can't remember her name. There was this woman during the Spanish Civil War. She was a communist. And does anybody know the name of the person I'm thinking of? So anyway, there was this woman, and she was like the mother of the revolution. Everybody, all of the communist revolutionaries were like, "Yeah, this lady is like what we all we know about her is that she's like our mom or whatever." I just remember Lauren Southern occupying the space of being like, she's like the right wing's virtual adventure girlfriend, and now Lauren Southern is like this my ex. You know what I mean? Like
she's the consuming mother of the E, right? Yeah,
she did. Yeah. So someone broke her heart, and she hasn't recovered from it. And of course, not to make light of whatever's happened to her, but my point is, in an archetypal sense, we're talking in an archetypal sense. She occupied a pleasant and fantastical place, and she has kind of now condescended herself to being like Grendel's mother. And you're like, okay, I guess that's a myth too, but it's not a fun one to be in. And I do feel like, so we're missing that. And I'm thinking, okay, Steven Crowder, you saw Steven Crowder because Charlie Kirk got killed. He's resurrected the college tour. I mean, I don't know where that happened. He did a video recently where he went into a barbershop full of black people and he was like, I'm not paying no reparations. And they were all like, yes, you is, white boy. And it was like this kind of like, this would have been funny in 2016, and today it's just like
it's after the orgy type of feeling.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And so we need new archetypes. Okay, that may mean we need old archetypes again, right? We need our Joan of Arc, right? We need a Joan of Arc. They tried it with Gio Scotty. It didn't work because she's a foreigner. We need a homegrown Joan of Arc. We need a lot. I'm telling you, we need a lot of mythologies to be filled back out so that we can get hyped up again. Because that's what I live for as a news guy, as a guy whose like life has been consumed since 2017 with this shit show that I do every week and sometimes extra. I need content. I'm like a thirsty lizard in the desert right now. I'm like, when am I going to get my next drink? It's been months. And we can't manufacture it. And this is my Alistair McIntyre Benedict calling for St. Benedict idea, is we just are waiting now for new guys to come in and fill the roles where we're all like astounded, right? We're trapped right now. I talked with Carr recently about this idea of our roster being filled out, which is to say like all the people who we engage with, or rather all the people who I engage with, who I watch, whose content I watch, whatever, we're still watching the same TV from 10 years ago. Milo just went on Tucker again. It's like Milo is from a long time ago. No offense, Milo. We need a new dangerous faggot. I'm sorry. We've retired you. You're an old troon. We need a new dangerous faggot. We need a new version of you that's not trying to do you, just occupies the same space, the same phenomenal space where when I experience that kind of slop, I go, wow, and we're missing a wow factor, and it's not blackpilling. I'm very hopeful it'll get filled out. In fact, part of the wonder, which is our topic for 26, we're going for wonder. We're dropping mirth. We're going for wonder. I know it's coming. We wonder about when, and we wonder when we'll notice when it's happened. So I am not black-pilled, I'm sure I'm speaking for both of you. We're kind of waiting for new clowns, We're kind of waiting because
it's Alethea. It's revealing. It's yet to spring forth into being, to quote Martin Heidegger. Yeah. No, it's true. I hate to say it though. I think a big problem is that a lot of what we saw in 2016, that crucial era that culminated into Trumpism, a lot of people were very hopeful for the second Trump administration. And bear in mind, I'm Canadian. I probably don't have a right to talk about this, but like, I think the big thing is that when you are given a lot of the same memes that are then spit out by official channels, whether it be like the DHS or whether it be like, MAGA people, it doesn't have the same power because it's like you're trying to do this right-wing hipsterism thing, but you're doing it now that at least what normies like to think is like you're in power now, quote unquote, although I'm skeptical of that. It's like it doesn't have the same impact anymore. And I think that, the DHS account, it may be funny, like tweeting a little dark age at it. But then at the same time, a more cynical reading would be like, Yeah, okay, but now that you have the ability to actually exercise power, which is what like all these NRX people have been talking about for years now, for 20 years almost. If now that you have the ability to do it, but to talk in the absence of power, or as if you are still within the absence of power and you're like this underground hipster revolutionary,
Mhm.
eventually you're going to have to either totally be bold faced with what you want to do and just step over it,
Well,
or you
ca
have to realize that you are like now the conservative establishment.
it's
And
still
it's yeah.
it's what boomers do. It's still the same thing that boomers do. They never give up the seat. They
Yes,
never give up the
exactly.
seat. You don't need you don't as the DHS, you don't need to do little dark age edits. You need to do the stuff the DHS is supposed to do, and you
Exactly.
need to let us do the fun, new, cool stuff because that whole thing every time they do or they do we put this image in ChatGPT and it came out and look, it's anime now, and it's like you need to stop because
Like
you are
Franklin.
actually
Yeah.
Franklin. It's like you are actually harshing the vibe. Do the job and let us come up with the new memes because on the one side, you see stuff like that, and it feels very much like what you're talking about, Gio. It also feels like it's a bit of containment. It does
Yes.
start to
Yeah,
get this
exactly.
feeling that it's kinda like not intentionally containment, but it feels like the videos they wouldn't be upset if the videos kind of contained everybody's attention towards that meme. Like, what I'm saying is they aren't making memes for the enjoyment of everybody. They're making memes so that people will watch their memes. And it's like, it's kind of changed. It's become advertising. And I don't
Too
like that.
shambling.
It
Yeah.
makes me feel
Yeah.
very uncomfortable. And it means, and I think it's stifling the vibe, not necessarily creativity, but I think it's stifling the environment within which, that stewing environment within which new memes happen. And it may be an inexplicable relationship because I couldn't tell you the mechanics as to how, but I've been doing this podcasting thing for a while, and I'm telling you, I have a good sense for when something has disturbed the local ecology. And every time, except for one time, where they posted it was an ICE agent, a woman, a Latina, let's be honest, who was
Mhm.
facing away from the camera, and she had 2 watermelons for butt cheeks, and she was holding by the arm an illegal midget. An illegal midget.
Yeah, I remember that.
And
Yeah.
I saw that and I went, "That is content right there. That's content."
This is
Because
American
it's
law,
not
right?
about, "Hey, everybody, look at me. Look at my art project." It's like, "No, this is funny." And we need more of that, and we need a little bit less pandering because it's having the opposite effect. Because I know Zoomers, the one thing Zoomers really hate is when people who kind of don't feel like they've been a part of the thing or haven't been doing the thing just kind of step in and start doing the thing. It's like you keep posting illegal midget wrangling. That's excellent. That's
Yeah.
the kind of real like live PD style content that I need. I don't need the dark age edit
Yeah, like if
with the
ICE were to
Sabrina
do a
Carpenter.
live Twitch stream, they'd probably do great.
Oh, yeah.
Like, give me a body
Oh yeah.
cam that is hooked up to like dhs.twitch.tv, and you're set and you're golden. And I think that's the thing too is that you're playing on a meme, you're playing on a media ecosystem that has been going on for 10 years. Most TV shows, even the best TV shows, don't go for 10 seasons. Most don't stay good after 7. And I think that that's sort of the important thing here is that, it's funny you mentioned television earlier. Like, I thought, like, I showed, like, my fiance I don't watch a lot of TV, but like every time I'm over at her place or when I was visiting while we were dating, it was like we were watching television and she's like, wow, you have great taste in TV. And I'm like, I'm showing you shit that's been out for like 10, 15 plus years. Like, I'm showing you
Yeah.
True
Yeah.
Detective. I'm showing you Hannibal. Like, I'm showing you shows that are good, but also like they don't make this anymore. And it's the
Yeah.
same thing with like the administration. It's like I want the administration to succeed, and I think it would be good to maybe. I mean, your base is behind you. Like right wing Twitter anons will make the memes for you. We will do
Yeah,
the job
it's not their
for
job.
you.
Right.
It's not
Yeah.
yours. And I understand that there are you, Gio, and I'm sure you do too, Birdo. Like, we have mutuals who work in the administration,
Uh-huh.
and like the palpable amount of frustration I hear, it's like, yeah, working in the system is a lot harder than people realize. And then two, it is boomers. It is so often like this, generational divide where it's like, you know, it's really, you really want more
They don't
than
love
what
the
you're
youth.
getting.
They
don't.
hate
Yeah.
the youth.
They
It's
really
crazy
don't.
if I know it when I'm an 80-year-old and I'm sitting on the throne of having the number one news podcast in America, and I'm sitting on that throne. I'm waiting for a Zoomer to kill me. I'm waiting for a Gen Alpha
Yeah.
to kill me. Gen Alpha would be a 60-year-old by then, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, the point is, don't overthink it. The point is, I want the youthful burst of sportive energy. That we need that, and it just feels like boomers are afraid. They're afraid of a little sport. They really are. It's a generation that fears.
Well, they all think they're like the judge, from fucking, Blood Meridian. Like, they genuinely think they'll never die.
Yeah.
And it's just like, he is spending. He is buying another yacht, and he is dancing naked, sagging in the midst of Viagra. And he says that he will live forever and that he will take out another mortgage. He says that he will never die. And it's just like, that's the fucking stuff that we're dealing with here.
That'll be a
And it's
clip.
like
You gotta
the
clip that one.
anti-Judge Holden, where it's just like, like
Boomer world, yeah.
double book accounting was waiting for its ultimate practitioner, and it waited for the boomer. And it's just like, okay, I think we can.
We are the Indians in that story. That's us.
We have been thoroughly scalped before we were like,
Yeah.
really coming into our own. And I
I
mean, on
don't
one
get it.
hand,
Who
I
wouldn't-
mean, this is
I
where
imagine
you've
that's
watched like the most hardened right winger who may have been like, yeah, like I'm pro free markets, like I have my Road to Serfdom by F.A. Hayek, which is still a good book. And now everyone sort of looks at the housing market or looks at the fact that like as long as they've been alive, like for the last 30 years, I have been systematically discriminated against because of my race. It's just like, man, I'm beginning to think, I mean, even Charlie Kirk of all people saw this coming in one of his last interviews on Tucker. He's just like, don't be surprised when everyone abandons the whole I heckin' love capitalism. I want my free market stuff. Like remember, like they had all those stickers like Big Gov sucks and things like that. Like, don't be surprised when that shit gets abandoned when someone wants to tell them that they can't afford a home and that it's okay to want to have the same quality of life that your parents did. Like, even right now, like, Indian carpetbagger Vivek Ramaswamy is getting ousted basically by Amy Acton, this white woman Democrat and from Ohio. And she's just like basically reposting all of the coal from Ramaswamy that we all hate too. And it's like, she's going to vote to the left of Mao every time when she's in office. But she is going to campaign on economic populism and telling people that it's not right that you get screwed over on the American dream, even though like really her voting base is going to be, African Americans, Hispanics, non-whites, and like white liberals. But it's going to be also like some young white guys that are basically done with the system that they feel like, well, I've been betrayed. And a lot of people maybe might find that to be overblown in the polling, and maybe that's true. But like we have to also remember, like in 2016, like almost 1 in 5 Bernie supporters in the Midwest ended up voting for Trump on economic issues.
Yeah.
And so I feel like as things continue to get worse, like even now, I was just reading earlier today, like a good chunk of Black Friday sales, I would love to see it broken down by demographics, but like a good chunk of Black Friday was done all it was all financialized. It was all buy now, pay later, some with probably no intent to ever pay it back. And it's just like, you can't Klarna your way out of poverty. You can't.
I can't believe that Klarna exists.
I can't believe. Yeah, I think Dan Baltic had the best tweet. He's like, I don't understand how Klarna exists. What do you mean you don't have a credit card?
Yeah.
And it's just like,
no, the Hicklibs are coming back. The
Hicklib is coming back. I'm waiting for Shagbark to become like a Bernie bro supporter, like again or something like that.
I had a yet unreleased episode with Aaron where I declared that I was a Democrat. I was gonna kind of go into that lane, and then I listened back to it and I was like, no.
You can't call. But the thing though is like,
do it.
you can I think on the right there's room for a lot of heterodox economic politics, but at the end of the day, like the left is pure like they've embraced the rhetoric of I mean, it's not new. Like the Weather Underground had conferences and they were like, yeah, we need to kill white babies. And the left is more or less embraced that like, listen, our entire political program has been Lothrop Stoddard's worst nightmare, and that we need to embrace an economic platform that milks what is ever left of like Heritage America dry. And they make it very blatant and obvious. And so it's just like it's hard when there
Oh
is no
yeah,
representation. And of
I
course,
was
like the
yeah.
system's a joke. I mean, like, I mean, I don't, this. I mean, like, I'm sure we can all meme and say we're Democrats, but like, in some
Well,
places,
you're right.
you that's the only way to play the game.
Yeah, no,
Well, yeah.
I never thought about becoming a Democrat in a political sense. I'm thinking it would be really funny to kind of do a month or two long bit where I tried really hard to. That was I'm literally going, how can I make content out of this?
I am
And
a Bronze Age
that's where we're at.
Democrat is really what I am. You know, like it's
Yeah.
that great meme where it's like of course I'm an 1890s progressive. You know, like I'm pro corporate taxes, I'm pro union, and I'm a senior member of the anti-Chinese league, and it's just like
Yes, yes.
I'm a 1890s progressive.
Actually, Democrats have always hated the Chinese. Like, say that would be really
Actually, the
funny.
Democrats are the real racists, and we should be embarrassed.
Yeah, exactly.
We
No, like
are the party of the Klan.
the no, but oh my god. No, the problem is that I think unironically, like maybe it's just me coping because of things how bad things are in Canada. But I think that I know like a lot of people like listeners in America don't want to hear this, but like a lot of places in the rest of the Western world, like in Europe and Canada and Australia, they have like 10 times more oppressive political systems, obviously. But in terms of the outlook of younger people, I think the right wing in these places are more primed to have a complete blank slate because any sort of like conservative right wing faction has by virtue been out of power for multiple decades. Like even in the UK, like when you look at the Tories, were they really the Conservative Party? No. Everybody knows like they're like the post Blairite consensus reality, right? So I think that like you see here in Canada, like what happened with Trudeau and what's more or less continuing with Mark Carney, like a lot of younger people are pissed off. And a lot of them have been so thoroughly demoralized that the similar conditions that that brought about Trumpism in the 2000s with Obama is almost like the rest of the Western world is experiencing that. But
Yep.
unfortunately, in America, like you have this bricolage of conservatism TM that it's trying its best to like contain Trumpism rather than like.
Uh-huh.
I mean, some people would go so far as say Trumpism was the op. I'm not saying that, but like they're in
That's
like
what I
in
was
other words,
saying.
no, but, like, the thing is, like, the right wing in America, they have this huge reckoning of what if the Democrats take power in a few years, it's like a lot of people are kind of fucked. And I mentioned the Hicklibs because what originally did attract a lot of disaffected people that were Bernie bros was that economic populism that Trump more or less gave support to, or the vibe was that he was breaking the mold of boomer-led, stuffy, libertarian fusion, William F. Buckley type of conservatism. And the fact that, like, because politics is the way it is, and Trump had to work within the Republican Party, all of those people that did like sort of this like venture, like all the e-girls and hicklibs that ventured into like right-wing hipsterism, they're going to be gone. And the Democrats are very easily going to be like, we're going to say that these fuckers hate you and they're rich
Mhm.
and they want you poor and dead. But we're going to like maybe kayfabe all of the LGBT, BIPOC, race communism stuff to like appeal to you. And that would be very effective for the Democrats to come in and do that. Whereas in the rest of the Western world, it's almost like the opposite conditions are true, where you look at like Macron or the leadership of the EU or Keir Starmer in the UK or like the Carney administration, the Laurentian lead here in Canada, or like the conditions in Australia. It's like younger people are just waiting for the boomers to die so they can have like either the far left or far right hashing it out in a real way. Whereas in America, unfortunately, both political factions are doing this containment thing where they're wrestling that energy from the fringes back into the mainstream. And even the right is subjected to this. Like, you are not immune from psyops. And
Well,
so it's like,
the other
it's a very
thing
interesting
too, the other
position.
thing too, not to interrupt though, Gio, is like the
No, I'm
younger
done. Go ahead.
generation, the younger generations that are right wing in say like Canada or Europe. One, I mean, like as limited as they are, their ability to form an institution, like their biggest barrier is the security state. I mean,
Yes,
we all seen
exactly.
what Martin Sellner and others have gone through, and that AFD has been
Exactly.
investigated, et cetera, et cetera. Like, but also in America, the bigger thing too, demographically, because it's so different than say Canada or the other parts of Europe, is just that the biggest issue is that the American electorate is still overwhelmingly white, and it's
Yeah.
also very old. And so, like every year, like about like 2 point something million baby boomers die, and like that is a big part of the MAGA coalition, and it's becoming mathematically harder to secure victories when you're getting screwed over by the fact that birthright citizenship is still a thing. I know that the court is going to take it up, although I imagine Coney Barrett and others will inevitably betray the United States once more and vote that it's okay. Despite the fact, I
Well,
mean,
for
that's the
their
thing that
personal
kills me.
reasons.
I mean,
Yeah.
oh, of course, right? Like, yeah, we know why. It's because Amy Coney Barrett has like adopted black kids, and like she's not going to vote on sort of a solidarity kind of platform that you and I would sort of recognize as acceptable or part of modern politics. And so what makes it more frustrating or just wild in general is that because of where we are, this is sort of it for America right now. I think that 2028 is entirely up to chance or faith, but I feel as if right now, like again, like even it's always funny that like Ron DeSantis comes out better when he's not campaigning for something. Like he was on Fox earlier today, and he was talking about the fact that like Republicans suck because they've ridden on Trump's coattails since 2016, and every other off election, no one wants to vote for a guy that doesn't sound like Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's fundamentally true. No one wants to vote for a guy that sounds like Mike Johnson. I want to vote for a guy that sounds like
Or
Marco
Ron
Rubio,
DeSantis.
when Ron DeSantis stopped running for president, like within a day, he was like on a bus calling Eric Holder a retard for having this like really
Yeah.
shitty legal
Yeah.
theory. And it's like, where the hell was this guy on the campaign trail instead of looking like the fucking like, like an analog horror character with your weird fucking face trying to smile on TV? Like you were sounding reasonable and based, and actually, like you could have been a
That Twitter
solid
space was a
politician.
disaster. Remember
Oh,
that
of
Twitter
course, his
space?
entire
Yeah.
campaign was awful. But like I say all this because like the American situation is really weird in part because like I'm heavily reliant on baby boomers. They're dying. They have the money, and at the same time, they're still the ones that are the donors and the institutional door openers, so to speak. And so like 2026 is going to get really weird because virtually every major like Jewish donor in America is going to get involved because I think that they fundamentally feel that power is slipping from them, at least rhetorically, and they don't know what to do with that. Like I know Miriam Adelson had announced that she's going to be very much involved in the 2026 primaries over the issue of Israel and candidates that aren't like Tucker Carlson. And I'm sure that she won't be the
Yeah.
only one. And so like it's going to get weird very quickly because even like there will be the Mamdani model that will be played whether or not like you get like the actual democratic socialist candidate that everyone's dreaming of. They won't get that, but you are going to get a solidified ethnic bloc that will constantly vote, blue no matter who, because that's what you do. And I think that that's sort of where it's going. So
Yep.
the joy or the mirth that we had once felt, like it was like a sweet taste of like honey from the honeycomb, but then you're like, oh yeah, there's a swarm of angry bees, and I don't have an EpiPen because if I don't, I'm gonna like
Yeah.
fucking die of an allergic reaction. And I mean, like again, like I feel like a lot of politics kind of suddenly stopped, being so joyful because as much as it might have been fun to groip Charlie Kirk 10 years ago or so, Charlie Kirk had changed fundamentally in a lot of his politics, and we all watched him got shot in broad daylight by what appears to be a like Trantifa adjacent person who had a furry lover, and the FBI has not really done more into investigating this, and the head of the FBI is a fucking Indian. And so it's very hard sometimes, I think, to have that mirth and that joy when you're fundamentally looking at it and it's just like there's so much more that we can do. But then I have to like stop and remind myself that there is a lot of stuff that this administration has done that's amazing. And this is why I really hate, and again, I think this is, I don't want to call it containment, but I think it's partially containment for sure. The whole rhetoric behind like plan trusting and you know and plan and panicins. I hate it because I think that it's very important to give feedback to this administration, because the Trump administration, like Trump 2, and you guys can push back if you disagree, but like I think this is the closest thing the American people, or at least like people like you and I, Birdo, Gio, you, because you're on the internet, but I mean, you're a Canadian, no offense. But like, this is the closest thing Americans get to direct democracy, which is kind of a wild experiment considering.
We are very far if that's the case. I mean, you may be right, but
true.
it just doesn't feel.
No, but I mean, I know it doesn't feel like it,
far.
but I mean, we're very far. But this is the closest thing that I think the average American.
You're probably right about that.
That like they're being heard, even if it's in terrible ways. Like I don't need a little dark age edit. I need a fireside
can I tell you?
That
I knew I felt
that
something was unusual when I did start to feel like they were listening. At first, and I'm not trying to be cynical. I'm just my experience. Sometimes I'll say something on the show, and then 2 weeks later, it happens in the White House, and I felt like I did feel like, they're listening to us. We're being heard, and then I kind of looked at it and I was like, yeah, but not on everything. So there is still this guy. I agree with you. It does feel like, first of all, it feels like we've fucking won the election. I mean, it feels like the culture war this time around really seemed to matter. Really seemed like that was the thing that kind of made it a sweeping victory rather than just possibly an ordinary victory. And I remember the jubilance that day. It was a total goon fest, and it was awesome. And no, I don't disagree with you that it does feel like it is more directly democratic than it has been, and that our voices are being heard. My main concern is it does feel now that we're watching advertisements. That's all. I mean, there are big victories. Not saying they're not. My issue is I remember actually some of the best years of my podcast were mid Joe Biden, when the world was falling apart. I mean, when he was destroying the whole world, was some of the best podcasting that I've ever done. And call me selfish or whatever, my main interest is in continuing to make a quality program. And if I am getting disaster and it's good radio, then it's good for me. Call me selfish, call me antisocial. But that is my main concern with TLE is I'm doing an entertainment product, so it's got to be on fire every day. And it just feels like the fire is out. I'm not even making in this exact moment, I'm not even making a political analysis. I'm just saying, hey, whatever you're doing, you could be doing it in a way that would be more beneficial to my show. So you want to talk about direct democracy? Democracy? That's all I mean is, well, then for TLE too. For TLE, do a little something crazy for TLE too.
I agree. What I mean by is like, yeah, they are listening, but at the same time, they're kind of not. And so like I agree with you 100%. And I think it's also true that like the 2020s, the Joe Biden era of his whole term was probably the best content that anyone has put out, because it was just so easy to
falling
talk about.
Off the bicycle.
The bicycle. I mean, like everyone was a schizo poster, because I mean because you never knew which Joe Biden it was. And then you also saw the like the fucking boom mic thing, like kind of looked weird.
That was like the inception of that's when TLE took off, as that boom mic with
I remember following you guys, and everyone was just like, which Biden is it today? And it was it was incredibly entertaining, but then at the same time you're thinking to yourself, okay, like now what else?
I mean, he's really the white race is going to go extinct on this guy's watch. You're having these. It is really like heroin. And I'm a real junkie, I'll admit it. But the Biden era was heroin, because it was the best thing ever, and it was certain death around the corner. Like and I feel that if Kamala was the president right now, it would be probably the best content maybe in human history. And also, I would probably be dead within a few months. So, it's obviously this is an age-old question of do you go out in a blaze of glory or do you just kind of simmer? And I feel like we're on simmer, and maybe it's just my natural humors. I need some explosions. I really do. And I know, and I recognize, again, there's an antisocial element to this, but I'm dead serious. This program requires more entertainment. So, and I'm not making this appeal to anybody in particular, but I'm saying if the timeline could get a little wacky, that would be excellent. And that's all. And, and I hope that doesn't get in the way of anybody's project to save America, because ultimately it would be great if America was saved. But do it also in a way that's really funny for the show, and not with the weird, Pete Hegseth is a week away from tweeting the least funny Agartha edit of all time.
It killed me because I was like, I wonder who got hired. Like, which mutual of mine got hired to do these
and it's sad because we love that mutual, but it's like
I love this mutual, but he wants to put a Sonenrad and so he's got to do like a star halo around George Washington. He's like, I really want to throw like a little bit of Erica into the background, but then I know that I'm gonna get fired from my job. Because they're gonna know that they're gonna call me a Nazi sympathizer or whatever, but it is. I want things to succeed, obviously, but I think in a lot of ways, one of the things that I was told by another big old head was that every administration, every election cycle bears there's always a new crop of podcasters. There's always a new set of
that's true.
Yeah, that's true.
People to follow or who make it big. And you wanna be the guys that get picked up. You want to be the guys that are like, oh man, I got the call and I'm gonna get hired by so and so, and
I got the $7,000.
I got my $7,000 check, baby.
I never get these emails for these kinds of opportunities. TLE is open. TLE's open to bribery.
You'd think
open to bribery.
How shitty the job market is. You'd think that you'd be willing to throw a $7,000 check my way. It doesn't even have to be from Israel. It could be from fucking Paraguay. And I'm going to start talking about U.S. Paraguayanese trade. I'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, $7,000 and I'll do a Hava Nagila week. I'll do a whole thing.
Yeah, we'll do
people
a whole
talk
week.
about Russian money. Where the fuck is this Russian money?
You've been doing it for free, Gio. I'm so sorry.
We were trying to angle in Xi Jinping, Chinese Communist Party money. We never got that. Everybody talks about
logo dinless
money.
Chinese, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I'll register with FARA.
To do a Rabbi Yusuf type of thing, you take me 100 culture war soldiers, 20 to, half of them Canadian, other half Indian, e-girl tattoo here, tattoo piercing here, 20 to 30% of them are gay. That's the culture war soldiers. That's the culture war.
But it is, literally. Just all of a sudden I see some I think I don't know if he's gay or not, but he looks very closeted, and he's just and then all of a sudden there's this gay guy talking about I was really blown away, and my understanding of Qatar had really changed after visiting the country, and I'm just come the fuck on.
Well, this is why, honestly, I really like the Brylan Hollyhands thing. I hope he sticks around for a while, because that's funny. I mean, that is a really funny thing to do.
He reminds
me so
much
character
of
that.
He reminds me of the Venture Brothers so much. He reminds me of Dean Venture. He's Hank, capitalism. What?
Yes.
He gets eaten by a Nicaraguan chupacabra.
Yes.
And it's fucking over.
We need new influencer rape victims every single week.
You need a lolcow, right? I mean, you need a lolcow. It's super important.
You should read that squirt.
I need another James Lindsay. I need I need a weeaboo sword guy who really believes in John Locke and is willing to sell out at a moment's notice. I need, because he's burnt out. He's lost everything. And even his weird stepdaughter that he's had really inappropriate conversations with, talking about women together with, it's just even she's I feel bad for him. He's my dad, and I feel bad.
James Lindsay was never a banger. I mean,
no,
never once.
He was a reliable lolcow. And we need more. I need better lolcows. I'm asking for a better class of psyop. I'm asking for a better class of lolcow because it would make my timeline a lot more entertaining. Because like right now, my Twitter engagement is fucking dead because it's just like I don't know what else there is to fucking say. Like everything
hates me, man.
like everything has been said. Like again, it's like the beginning of Ecclesiastes and it's the beginning of Proverbs. Like much knowledge bringeth sorrow, and like everything is vanity. And nothing new under the sun. Everything that has been will be.
This is so funny. I don't know what it says about me, but my interactions have been better than ever. I don't know what it says about me, but I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm starting to feel like actually X is coming back. I'm starting to feel like X might be coming back. I'm hoping that for everybody. I really am. I mean, what I mean is I hope our timelines start to improve because for a while I was getting like bad AI videos. And now there's this video that I got recently of a Chinese woman cracking open a minion for like
I
some
saw
sort
that.
of.
Yeah, that was
Now
great.
that is good slop. There is a point where just the timeline needs to improve. Just the timeline needs to improve. And Elon, I know you're listening. I know you listen quite often. Just put something in the algorithm that feeds me more lolcows, because that really, if you want to talk about the simplest essence of what made like the early Biden presidency a golden age for TLE, it was because there were so many people doing obviously insane things. It was great to laugh at. And I'll tell you, that's what I need. It's better when your enemies are retarded. Obviously, right? I mean, that's pretty obvious. But it's better when your enemies are retarded. And maybe we'll leave it here as a final kind of topic. We were supposed to talk about the war on Christmas.
Yeah, I was going to say we should do that.
We'll do that.
The war on Christmas is a genesis.
I've got all the time in the world, but yeah.
Yeah, me too, man. We got to go.
Well, we'll do war on Christmas, but let me finish with this thought and tell me what you think. I think if Gavin Newsom runs for president in 2028, it's going to be very dangerous.
Oh, yes.
Because
in the show.
He is going to find a way. He's going to find the alchemical formula to kind of make it feel like it's going to be fun. And I think the danger is that, as was described already, there are some guys orbiting our team who otherwise would be reliable voters to just prevent the country from completely becoming Camp of the Saints. Mrs. Newsom is going to provide some kind of rhetorical thing that's going to be really good for content. And a lot of people are going to think because of that, we want Newsom. He's going to do a populist message. Yeah, dark woke. They're going to pull back from some things. They'll keep other things, but they'll be quiet about them. And they'll focus on the Mamdani strategy of making all of the promises that everybody's literally been asking the Trump administration to follow through with, whether they can or not, doesn't matter. I'm just saying what people want is cheaper, more affordable. And Gavin Newsom is going to combine a dark woke mentality with this like new Zoran idea of just, what do they call it in Islam? Where you just lie? Where you just do the lying?
This is an old school, like speaking of war and Christmas, this is like old school counter jihad rhetoric.
yes, the David Wood school of counter jihad.
Abbasia is like the weird like unity or
Abbasia is the unity thing, but like
the identity thing. No,
it's amazing the Republicans haven't kind of figured it out, but you can just kind of, when we say you can just do things, the inverse of that is what Gavin Newsom is doing, which is we can just lie about things. And it's I almost think it's going to work. And I don't want to put that out into the universe because I say things and they happen. It's a weird thing that's been going on. But I'm telling you, he's going to deploy the most sophisticated rhetorical strategy we've yet seen, and I think it'll be amazing for content, and I think it'll almost trick people into doing the voting thing.
They're going to do like the irony
we're
leftist.
Not ready for that.
They're going to do the irony leftist like you're literally 12. That's been an effective one.
Gavin Newsom is going to be like the first come town president. It's really what it's going to be.
That's right.
And I think, but again, like that economic populism thing, like they're going to run with it because regardless of what Trump does, they're just mathematically speaking, like so much, like there's so much shit he's going to get left holding the bag for from Biden and from even like the COVID stuff is going to come up to roost. And the economy is probably not everyone feels that it's bad. Right. And like Trump is going to do everything possible. Trump can do, especially with this new like budget that's going to come in where he's got like a bigger ICE budget than like most countries have militaries. And it's just like he's functionally going to have his core people, you know, and we're going to see Guatemalans get deported every day for like the next 3 years. It's going to be great.
The way to win in 28 is to fix it.
Yeah, and I mean, really, 28 is going to be a question of like,
you gotta
do you
fix
like
it.
the path that
Can
we're
you do
on,
it?
or can you fix it? And
you
so
know, you can't. Well, what I mean is, and I'll just say because I'm not affiliated with it.
Yeah.
To win in 2028, you have to change demographics. You have to gerrymander. You have to just make it so that the other team mathematically cannot succeed. And that should be what the whole game is about. I don't even care. I don't even care how much of a Fed J.D. Vance might be. People say this. I don't give a shit. The other side is going to kill me right away. So the goal is win under any circumstances. And everybody should be prepared to do what we were all saying happened with Trump term 2, which was 2020.
Yeah.
And you need to fix.
Do what Atlantic writers, do what Atlanticists, sorry, I was going to say Atlanticists, do what Atlantic writers actually say that they're going to do.
That's right.
With gerrymandering.
It has to be done.
You know, like changing demographics through deportation.
It has to be done. I'm not a fan of purely Machiavellian politics, but there's a time when you go, we're looking at the barrel. We have got to do something. And that's the thing. I mean, if you want to win, don't put it up to chance. Don't put it up to J.D. Vance's Riz, because I'm not sure if that's going to play. Don't put it up to anything. Just, you got to fix it. And it's that simple. You got to fix it because you can't lose. And if you lose, we're all going to die. So
it's over. Yeah.
There's so many podcasters and people who I know in mainstream politics. I'm like, you do know if you lose, you're going to jail for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Like does that thought cross your mind? Like there's a guy, I won't say his name. I won't, because he worked for a while in the administration. He had an advisory role with state. I won't say who he is because I can't even put out the fucking podcast I recorded with him because he's like, I don't want to cause trouble. And I'm like, oh, I understand. But like he was just like, listen, the administration like the people that I work with are doing everything possible to try and get that victory. But I also know that there are a million other people in there that aren't on board with this, and they're still trying to cling to these like old school political orthodoxies. And it's like, dude, we're gonna go to jail if we don't win.
Yeah.
And it's
we
just
are
like,
going to go to jail.
Your best guy. I mean, this is the thing that kills me about like,
and they are going to put us in the trans female prisons.
Oh yeah,
and lock them up. It's
Norman
going to be
will determine everything.
Yeah,
and so it's like, okay, like cool, this is great, but like I really really need you to understand that like every Sam Hyde meme is probably accurate. They really want to like rape kids and they're going to laugh at it.
We really do live in the age of like it's funny because if you do lurk like I mentioned, like Atlantic writer, like Blue Sky, academic libtards. I know it's like a popular meme to say like woke more correct, but like we kind of do live in the age of necropolitics where political discourse has become so finely tuned to a sort of anti-humanist position where it literally is a matter of like of existential life and death, or at least it feels as if the mortification of your own political side is going to come about with the victory of the other. And so on both the left and the right, you do have a sort of necropolitical awareness of like, oh man, if I even lose one election, it's over. And there's, going to be maybe not like an overt, like there's going to be camps or whatever, but you never know. But there will be like some form of mass, even cultural effacement so that will take place, that will become extinctionist in a lot of ways. And I'm just viewing it thoroughly like as a word cell and a theory cell. It's like it seems to be that is the vibe. There was something very perceptive that my good friend on Twitter, Ange and Julius, he tweeted recently. He said the problem with democracy is that it's the most anti-humanist politics because it pits man against man in such a fundamental way, and because it's divorced of any sort of like ancient noblesse oblige or order of rank. to where like everybody is in the constant like thunderdome of political discourse and battle, that you can't really view your fellow countrymen as an individual, not an individual person, but you can't view them as part of a greater collective on a even, metaphysical or cultural level. And so you're resorted to an extinctionist politics where the other side's going to kill me unless I act first. And it's just, this is, I think, what, ironically enough, you could even, like, even a leftist in like the 1960s or 70s would say this, like a leftist academic, like a Frankfurt School person would say that even someone like, Karl Popper, open society, democracy, fetishism, whatever, like secular democracy, humanism, that unironically has led to the opposite, where people don't actually respect or engage with each other in a sort of like communicative rationality where we can all have our say and like talk, like hash it out. Like we can all have like the fucking, like the public space. Like, no, the opposite's true, where because we're so divorced from one another on such a fundamental level in this quote unquote liberal democracy, open society, anyone can engage in what we have, blah, 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 that we actually hate each other, that hell is the other person. And that it has the opposite effect. It very much is like I can formulate the Adam Curtis documentary in my head of the downfall of modern Western democracy is because it fosters this environment and it strips people of deeper forms of signification with each other. And this whole like Karl Popper psyop about like the open society is total bullshit. And they actually hate each other even more. And it's not very good. So my theory is that it's going to get worse.
Yeah, it has to.
Well, it
has to.
has to. And I mean, I think this is what it boiled down to was like every election has been this civil war that we play by numbers. And we play this game of existential politics where for my entire life, the left played for keeps, and they still do,
Yeah.
obviously. Like they'll put them all back in chains. George W. Bush is a Nazi, and every right winger, every conservative, even libtards like John McCain were Nazis. And it didn't matter because we were going to win and we were going to get DACA and the Dreamers passed. And the 2016 election was supposed to look like a blue wave that Republicans could never win from generationally ever again.
Yeah.
They wanted to do the exact same thing that we talk about, where it's like gerrymander, destroy, make sure your enemies are incapable of victory. And of course, that didn't happen, thanks be to God. But it's just like, eventually people realized, and the left too, the left got far more radical, I think, than the right did during this whole 2016 period. Because while the sort of like Trigglypuff, the entertainment era was like a very fun time to be in politics, every administration and professional politician and civil servant recognized that, like, oh, this is sort of a very real burgeoning threat to my existence. And we have to do everything possible to put these people in jail or to kill them. And if you really do believe that, like a lot of people on the left and of course on the right do, why would you take anything up to chance? And so, yeah, people are going to shoot at ICE agents. People are going to shoot Charlie Kirk in the neck, and they wish they could do it again. And that's the real dangerous part about all of this, like, political moment is that, as much as like stochastic terrorism gets memed, it's like, well, we fundamentally have dehumanized our fellow man, and whatever common ground that I used to have with liberals has disappeared. One, under like the rising tide of color, and then two, under this like really great political program where if you even opposed the slightest thing of popular culture, there was this emotional social patronage that said, if you did not think, for instance, like if you didn't think Hamilton was cool, or if you didn't think, women in gaming was good, then you were fundamentally on the side of genocide and murder, and we should
so
kill
awesome,
you.
honestly.
I mean,
it was, but that was awesome.
Is this you? And it's like the coolest thing ever. But
I
like,
know.
for
right.
them,
Here's the
it
exact
was-
tweet by Anjulius. Here's the exact tweet by Anjulius.
Yeah,
And
go for it.
follow him, Novu Solus on Twitter and Vellum. The average person would be far more tolerable and maybe even likable if they had no political rights. You could entertain their silly opinions and malformed ideas, knowing that they had no impact on your own life. And so they were wandering bard telling tall tales. And you say Trump's assassination was fake, amazing. And he released a concealed blood squirt the moment he hit the ground like a WWE wrestler. That's terrific. Then he says, democracy is the ultimate anti-humanist political system because it compels you to loathe the common man. And so that is like the sloppulous delusion as well on the left and right, is that it's always a conceit of like, I love my fellow man, I want to do better from them, but by definition, I have to be above them. I have to be this, you know, a Gombian, Schmittian exception of the law. And it's like that never works. You know, you have to either just fucking admit to it. But sorry to cut you off, Pruma.
No, I agree with the take wholeheartedly because like we've functionally. I mean, it's funny because like you use necropolitics in a much different way I do. Because like for me, or I live in what you would call like a necro economy where everything is oriented around healthcare because like there's just so many fucking old people, and like that's really where all the job growth is in the medical industry because people are
Yeah.
dying, and then you have all of these like
In my
out
country,
of
they kill you.
towners, out of town. Well, yeah, that too, but like all these out of towners too who are like trying to escape the city sprawl because it's unaffordable and not safe. And then it's like, so it's gentrification, but also like if you want to like have a stable job, it's got to be in a place where you're going to be taking care of old people for the rest of your life. And they're the only ones that are kind of like voting to keep all this shit back. So like you're desperately trying to keep all these fucking boomers alive because they're the only ones voting not in my backyard. And you're like, thank you, God. But then like, that they're going to die soon anyway. And you're like, fuck. But it is anti-human because now all of a sudden my enemies know it too, because the only political stuff that matters now is trying to make sure, that there are enough angry Mexicans who are ready to vote for the guy who's anti-deportation and to do everything else like that. Because, I think that the next presidential election will be a real interesting test of like the Rio Grande Valley that's gone considerably for Trump over the last like 2 election cycles. And we'll see, because I think a lot of them are just going to be like, well, he voted to like kick out abuelas, so why would I vote for him again? Which again, like it all boils down to the demographics of the country and that we live in a system where everyone is a number. And if you're not on board with this like hyper financialized slop system where you can literally bet on when the fucking red light, goes to green on the local traffic stop, then like, what are we doing here? And I feel like it gets overblown, but it's just like, you either fix the problem or we keep sliding further into Weimar, and nobody wants that.
Well, it might be good for the show.
Well, the way out people want, but I mean, like, I really don't want to live in a place where, like, it's Weimar forever. Like, like, I don't want to live in a place where, like, white kids are just told,
I don't think TLE could handle Weimar for more than one season of the show.
Yeah.
But all this culture war stuff to finally get to the topic.
The war on
watershed
Christmas
moment. Yeah, it was a watershed moment for the culture war. The war on Christmas. Everything we see nowadays, like from 2016 till now, all this stuff already happened. The Birchers versus William F. Buckley, National Review, the Paleocons versus the Neocons. All this shit happened in the 50s and 60s. And all this stuff happened when we were like little kids watching Bill O'Reilly in the 2000s talking about the war on Christmas and then Ground Zero Mosque. Like, so Birdo, did you have an introduction to this topic? Or?
Yeah, you just mentioned something very interesting. And this is, I guess, we talk about like phase one of the. So, I mean, the war on Christmas as a concept is actually older, but we're just talking about the modern version of the war on Christmas. And I didn't realize this till I was doing my reading on this, but one of the early origins of this idea of a war on Christmas being waged comes from Peter Brimelow. In 1999, there's a reference to, there's a reference to the shift from Merry Christmas to Happy Holidays, and it's coming from VDare. And now, the reason why that's relevant is because you just mentioned the Birchers and the Buckleyites. And Peter Brimelow, writing about it, is writing about a kind of ethnic conflict. I mean, it's a racial demographic conflict that they are. This war on Christmas is they are replacing us. And where does it go next? The war on Christmas, Fox News. It goes to the mainstream. The war on Christmas gets opened up, and it gets reframed from its original framing to a war on religion, like the persecution of Christians, the idea that the war on Christmas is about the hatred of Christians. And so you see a swap from the original formulation by Brimelow to the modern formulation, where white is framed to Christian, which kind of opens it up to a national audience and allows, millions of people who otherwise wouldn't have been engaged in it for the reasons of what its original, the distastefulness that average Americans see in Brimelow's version of it, turns into this very palatable and yet also very Buckleyized version. And in the sense that the thing that the Buckleyites did was castrate.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, no matter what the wars that they were fighting, their job was to castrate the more extreme version in favor of a more widely adoptable. And then, of course, widely adoptable, but it's lost its telos. It has no real direction. And so that's where I would open it up is I think it's interesting that you bring up the Birchers and the Buckleyites, because I feel like we should talk about the war on Christmas not as one waged by libs on Christmas lovers like us,
right,
but as a battle being fought internally by two groups who have different ideas of what Christmas is.
Perfect.
There's one version of Christmas and there's another version of Christmas. The first version of Christmas has a racial component. The second version of Christmas has Irving Berlin songs attached to it. So those are the two sides of it. So I don't know, go from there. What do you think?
No, that's great. That's 100% great. So let me just step in, because one thing I'll say quickly, because I know Prue has a lot of ideas in this, is that it's a ratchet effect in the sense that libs will talk about the right in a lot of issues as, for example, when they focus on Christianity with the war on Christmas, back in the day, I remember this clearly, a lot of libs would say to Bill O'Reilly, they would say, no, actually, that's like the secret code word dog whistle for the racial anxieties that conservatives have with a changing demographic situation in America. But the reality is that it's not that all of these people on Fox News are like these secret, like Peter Brimelow is waiting to happen. It's like, no, they actually do believe in like colorblind meritocracy. Like Christianity to them is the embodiment of Western civilization that anybody, quote unquote, can participate in as long as you have the values. What the libs are getting at is the actual essence of the people on the farther to the right, like Peter Brimelow, who actually say, Christianity is this representation of, like, I know a lot of pagans would be offended to this. I'm not trying to offend, the pagans, but like a lot of Christianity is embodied by what was originally created from European peoples in America and elsewhere. And so it's like a weird thing where the libs will project actual far-right ideas on conservatards, but conservatards themselves, they have this genuine good faith in like this colorblind, like MLK is a saint type of deal. And so their only acceptable way to express those anxieties is by pinning it on like racially neutral Christianity. And also like the Zionist thing is also in there as well. But like that's not too pertinent to Christianity, but it's really pertinent to how a lot of people in conservatism TM express their anxieties. It's like, I've said this for many years, a lot of the whole Zionism thing is like, I can't control the destiny of my country, but I can perceive the Israelis controlling the destiny of their country by punishing what we like to think are these brown people, even though like the average, like, Lebanese person, actually, some will look whiter than me, but still it's like the perception of like, they're going after these brown people, blah, 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 and we can't do anything. But a lot of these conservatives like Bill O'Reilly, to them, Christianity was like the Jordan Petersonian, like that is the hallmark of Western values that the libs are attacking. Whereas like you were saying, this much older tradition, like I was reading this academic paper to prepare for this stream, this recording, where this like libtard was writing this academic paper on the war on Christmas. And they were pointing out, like you were saying, that it came from like the John Birch Society and like the war on communism, and how to the Birchers, anti-communism was a way of like the right wing regaining a cultural victory away from the new left at the time in the mid 2000s, during the cusp of like peak Obama world. the War on Christmas was a way for conservatards to gain a cultural victory back from the political left in the Great Awakening, or on the cusp of the Great Awakening. And so I know the stupid term woke, but like I think that's very perceptive what you said, Birdo, and it does have like a lot of the disconnect between actual right wing theory and like what the conservative establishment took and neutered. And because they thought it was too scary or they didn't believe in it themselves, they're like the right side of liberalism.
Possibly a third reason, if I could say, I think is now as you're casting it against this libtard backdrop, possibly a third reason why they did it, why Fox News converted it into a more palatable issue. And this is the biggest problem of all with people who are ostensibly supposed to be on the same side of the spectrum as us, is that they did it to engage with libtards.
Yes.
They love convincing libtards to jump over the fence line. Yeah. They don't care as much about a no enemies to the right for the sake of a forward arrow. And now, whatever you think about no enemies to the right, one thing that it does rhetorically is it establishes a direction. It solves one of, I think it's Robert Conquest's problems. Maybe it's not Conquest, but the idea that the bureaucracy will always move towards the left unless it is explicitly on the right. And I think the whole no enemies to the right thing is the arrow that points towards that. And when you're doing this like mainstream conservatard thing, where your goal is to convince the other team,
yeah.
First of all, to do that, you have to condescend to their language. And the second that you've done that, you've actually validated their language for the situation in the first place. So it's not that it's being cast as a religious war, it's that it's being uncast as a demographic struggle. And that is part of the libtard thing cannot have a demographic conversation. They cannot.
It's appealing to their moral framework.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's like the thing, like the right wing, like the Fox News conservatives, they can't really go after the left with anything, so they have to like bog down into like the liberal notions of like Karl Popper, open society humanism, by focusing, for example, on anti-Semitism, and they're like, well, you people hate, you're anti-Semites, and so it's like that's the moral framework that they used after October 7th with like the pro-Palestine people. Is like, well, Mandani is gonna bring back radical Islam and they're gonna persecute all the Jews in New York. It's like, that's, to them, it's like consenting to the moral framework of the left wing. And that doesn't work because, like, let's face it, a lot of like Jewish people in America are left wing, and so a lot of them are pro-Palestine.
74% of them, I think we just
got. Yeah.
The statistic after everything Trump has done, it's like 3/4 of them.
That's still one of my favorite things, where it was on the campaign trail, where like Trump, I think, is at like at a golf course in Florida, and he's like he walks by. I think he's being interviewed, or he's talking to some like I guess like a Jewish reporter or someone representing like the Israeli Times. I don't remember who it was. And it was just like, I gave you the Golan Heights, and it's just like, yeah, but they're not going to vote for you.
Yeah, but what have you done for me?
Let's be real. Jews in America don't give a fuck about the Golan Heights. In fact, it looks bad for them.
No,
it's just,
it's not. Israel, for a lot of American Jews, is a very distant throwaway issue that allows you to have like, I'm not just explicitly targeting your homeland, I'm also criticizing my own.
Why do you think the latest language is about the rise of anti-Semitism, right? Because that's the network that brings it all together. It's not about Israel. Now it's about rising anti-Semitism.
Now it's anti-Semitism. I mean, that's been the go-to play forever, which is...
Of course,
even in America, like, there was significant talks in the Clinton administration to reduce immigration. And one of the biggest things that happened out of that was that a lot of people pushed back, prominently a lot of, like, Jewish lobbyists, for the claim that, like, oh, this kind of like restrictionism is it's very pogrom-esque. And it was just like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
But like, I don't think me wanting to have a bunch of people from the global South come into the United States means I want to do the same thing like that happened in St. Petersburg or whatever. Like, this is not what I'm here to do. But nevertheless, like, that's sort of the way things are going. And even now, right, like there's been this major push to overcorrect or to move things in a certain direction. Like there's been Barry Weiss now at CBS, which I don't think is going to go anywhere particularly well.
think that's gonna be a shit show. Oh yeah.
Oh no, it'll be a beautiful shit
it'll
show.
be a shit show, yeah.
But like, I don't think it'll. I like. It was very funny to listen to her talk, where she's like, "Well, I want to have people on, like, like Alan Dershowitz, or like Dana Loesch." And
What a great idea, Barry!
Like that's the best examples you can think of. Like, I think the Free Press had someone out where they were having a gun control debate, like fucking gun control, the issue that has been dead forever. Not just since Heller versus DC, but also like I just watched like a teenage boy like pop 3 pedophiles, and he wasn't even aiming for pedos that night in 2020. But like here we are, and the gun rights issues that are like, why are we talking about guns? Like, this is ridiculous, and no one cares. But I mean, I think the thing too is like, isn't it funny that like when I thought of White Christmas, we were talking about snow, not the Pale Settlement. But like that's just sort of the way it goes. I've been sitting on that joke for like 3 hours now.
Do you think CBS will start doing Merry Christmas stuff?
Oh, of course not.
They have to.
Okay.
Well,
Oh, okay. So well, I like this. Will because I think we'll see, and it'll say a lot. It'll say a lot.
I think that there's going to be. I've noticed this since the 2024 Democratic National Convention is that Dems are trying really hard to claim that they are the, like, not OG, but like that they are the real Christians. There was no, there were a lot of pastors. I'm going to say this in quotation marks, but there were a lot of pastors and things at the RNC or at the DNC. There was invocations of God or like the value of charity. And of course that whole, like he gets us, that terrible campaign. It's not even led by Christians or people who even believe in Christ. A lot of Jews on that board as well. And you're just thinking to yourself, okay, like this is where they're going with it, is they're taking the skin suit of Christianity and turning it into the just be a heckin' good person kind of argument. And I think that the left is going to try their hardest to reclaim some aspects of Christianity. You're going to see this in Texas with that James Talladega.
They're going to do it through Catholicism.
But, well, I was going to mention
Catholicism. Yeah.
Catholicism
I'll do
its own
as the Catholic.
Issue.
I mean, I don't know, Gio, if you're Catholic.
I'm Catholic. Yeah, I'm a cradle Catholic. Yeah, I'm cradle Catholic.
Okay, so Birdo, are you Catholic?
No, I'm not.
He's Orthodox.
Okay, so Gio and we probably have both kind of seen it happening. Is this like skinwalker Catholic that is going to be part of the vanguard? And Catholics in America have always leaned left, but I mean, there's a real vanguard that's coming of these like Bidenites. These like
no, but you know what's
suspicious Bidenites.
You know what's funny is that the Catholic Church in Canada is actually more based than like the American diocese. Because like a lot of American Catholics are like very pro-immigration, like the leadership, and they're like giving refuge to the refugees and stuff like that. And like they are facilitating a lot of the migrant crisis. But like in Canada, you do have that. But when it comes to like a lot of other political issues, like recently there is this attempt by the Liberal Party to not make like any sort of biblical verse or religious text of any kind an exception to whatever retarded, like ridiculous hate legislation they want to pass. And this has been a huge uproar in Canada. Like a lot of people are like, this is fucking insane that you can't quote the Bible or the Torah or the Quran when it comes to like a religious exemption to these like bullshit laws that are needless because there's already hate speech laws on the books. So the Catholic diocese in Canada recently, like they came out and said, fuck this is terrible. We're totally against this. But I wonder, like, the Catholic Church in America had historically a lot of problems, and I wonder,
our USCCB is ready to be part of a libtard vanguard. I think it's obviously
I worry
clear.
about this. Yeah,
and so proved my point being, they can probably do we're bringing God back. I mean, not quite as they'll never say that, but you know what I mean. Yeah. They have an option to bring in a coalition who probably could have fallen for the J.D. Vance option by actually adopting maybe not a Merry Christmas. I don't know. Would Merry Christmas have to be the thing? I don't even think so.
I don't think I don't think it will. I really do think it's just going to be a very like Reddit style, just be a heckin' good person type deal. Like they're going to appeal.
Jesus Christ Superstar.
Well, yeah, it's going to be Jesus Christ Superstar, but it's also going to be, the real Christianity is loving thy neighbor, and loving thy neighbor means a million immigrants, and it means doing all of the things that, Trump doesn't want to do. And you see this already with the idolatry this Christmas already, and they've done this before in previous administrations, but they do this every year where, Jesus was an undocumented immigrant and that there have been
Syrian
nativity
migrants, right.
stats or
Or
nativity,
Jesus was trans.
yeah,
Yeah.
what I mean? Don't get me started on the fucking Anglican Church. Like, that's so sad. But like, it's
Lesbo Pope, amazing,
the lesbo
amazing.
and the fucking, I'm friends with an Anglican priest. He's not in communion with Canterbury, and he's a very conservative diocese where he's explained it to me that like a lot of Anglican churches or Episcopal churches that are conservative, the priest's job is to defend the church from their bishop because of how progressive they are.
Frightening.
And it's really depressing if like
Yeah.
you are an Anglican, because just like we were talking, like you mentioned at the beginning, Birdo, like a lot of these religious confessions are examples of European identity, especially with the reformers. And I don't think that gets enough attention because I mean, again, it isn't. It's one of those things where like it's an ethnic thing, even if you don't want to call it that. Like it very much is one. And I think that for the left, they kind of recognize the power that still has. And they have the Catholic Church as this beautiful NGO, dumping ground for immigration issues. But like culture war wise, they want a softer image because they kind of know that like, okay, this woke shit really does have a hard cap on what we can run with, because like Catholics for Choice, right? Like that whole organization, the
Right.
whole Charlotte Clymer person, it was on the board of that or still is. I don't know, that tranny. And it's just like, isn't it depressing? Like if you are a confessing Catholic that you believe that like you are the followers of Jesus Christ and his disciples, leading with St. Peter, like all of a sudden, like the future is like some tranny telling you to like abort your kid. It's like, it's terrible. And so
Another element is go ahead, Pruitt, sorry.
yeah, but so I mean, like, so in Texas, right? Like, there's that James Talarico guy. He's not Catholic. I believe he's a Methodist seminarian turned politician, and his whole thing is like trying to reclaim Christianity from the right. And he's very adamant that he can do it. And I think he's going. I think he's either running for Senate or for governor in this upcoming election cycle in 2026. And it'll be very interesting to see where it goes because I think that as it's been in the past, there will always be an alliance of especially like African American like liberation theology pastors, very liberal white Christians and Jews that are open to having all kinds of discussions about this is the right thing to do. This is the Christian thing to do. I don't think it'll be as like in your face. I think it'll be highly specific and highly targeted because of course most Democrats and most libertards are atheists, but they have to appeal to, of course, the few, Christians who think that like being a Democrat is like what it means to be a good almsgiving Christian, which, is the
Right,
opposite.
they're very good at being sanctimonious.
Oh yeah,
which is all you really
it's
require to
sanctimonious.
be a
It's very
left
Pharisaical. They're very good at
Yeah.
it. They're very good.
Another rhetorical trick I've examined to further that, Pruitt, is I noticed like with the millennial demographic, you have the irony leftists. They have been given license, even though most, like I'm talking 90%, they're probably like atheists or agnostics or like, I took ayahuasca once in 2012 when I went to the Amazon. What they're doing is they have this war on converts because a lot of irony cells, they are like millennials that grew up in like largely Catholic, Irish, Italian, like in Boston, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania. And so what they do now is that, these like right wing, like trad caps or trad ortho bros that are like Zoomer converts because I don't know, they like watched Census Fidelum videos or they read Seraphim Rose, that these people, they're like creepy incels and they're evil and that's not what being a Catholic is. Being a Catholic is being like born into it. And if you're a convert, it's like that's you're like this creepy weirdo like
Oh,
JD
they did that
Vance.
to JD Vance too.
Yeah, yeah, and like I know everything about Catholicism because I was born into it and I was confirmed once, although I forgot I haven't been to confession since I was like 8 years old. And it's like that's
You've
their
been to
rhetorical
mass in
trick.
20 years, but let me tell you, boy.
Yeah, being Catholic to an irony cell is essentially being like a cradle Catholic, and I'm a cradle Catholic, but like being cradle Catholic to an irony leftist is essentially just another identity marker, and they're going to use that as a wedge against what they see on the right as like these like convert Zoomer incels. That
Well,
convert
I mean, a lot of that
Catholicism
too
or
is
Orthodoxy.
because like a lot of guys. I mean, it's mainly male driven, obviously.
Obvious, yeah.
But it's like because again, like speaking of the war on Christmas, like the war on men was another like artifact of ancient days that we just kind of accepted was something that was always going to be this ongoing front. And it's like young men, like Zoomers especially, all basically woke up one day and were told to get fucked from the get go. And they were looking for answers, spiritual and otherwise. I mean, we're kind of in the same sort of era of the 1970s where there's been this renewed interest in neo-paganism and a lot of Eastern philosophy and mysticism and folk traditions of the East. And of course, that's also been surged by a growth in traditional or conservative Christianity. So there's been a huge uptick in
Yeah.
traditional, Protestant traditions. A lot of Southern Baptists have seen a lot of young men come back. And then, of course, the growth in like trad Catholicism, Orthodoxy, etc. And it's not going away anytime soon, I don't think. But
Yeah.
also, they're going to target it like nobody's business because they don't want you to have any place where you could effectively organize politically. And religion has always been the bedrock for identitarian and political convictions, both. And I don't mean this to ignore like the racial aspect. I'm actually trying to incorporate it because for a lot of people, the church that you went to, especially in America, was like, well, that's where your kin has been going forever. And that's where like your family is buried. And that's a very deep seated thing that echoes still even now in the American consciousness. And I think that now it's going to try and be taken over as a like libtard skin suit because they know they can't call it blood and soil, but they want to just make sure that like to be a good person is to advocate for this, like even like conservative, like sort of like, Christian Inc. kind of guys do this with like, well, you have to remember the kingdom of heaven isn't on earth. And it's just like, yeah, but at the end of the day, I'm going to be judged by the dread judgment seat of Christ. Like he's going to ask, like, what did I do? Did I like, what did I do to the least of me? And for us, the least of us, for a lot of people is going to be like, oh, the people that like every libtard has been wanting to kill, which is my countrymen. But for them, it's going to be like, well, the least of us, to reference Matthew 24, it's going to be like all of your immigrants, all of the people that, you've been laundering money to. And it's just like, that's where that big debate's going, despite the fact that for everyone who's listening or everyone that kind of gets it, this does boil down to we hate white people and we are going to hate any place where you are trying to collectively regroup culturally, spiritually, economically, etc. Because there is no place where they will let you be free. And it's funny when I see people will post about like the demographic growth of the Amish or whatever, and it's just like if the Amish were a threat, their entire way of life would have been made de facto illegal.
They would have been Waco'd,
They would
yeah.
have been Waco'd. And it's really funny because up until maybe about 50 years ago, there both on the left and the right, there was a really huge anti kind of like Mennonite, anti Amish polemic and feeling in that era of politics. And it's funny how that's changed, but it does kind of come to show that like there is no Benedict option. The only really good takeaway from the Benedict option is that like if you are a God-fearing, goes to church more than once a week or even goes to church once a week and you actually confess what you believe in to be true, congratulations, you're already a minority. And that needs to be considered in your actions going forward spiritually and politically. That's the only good takeaway from that book. And so I
Yeah.
really do think when it comes to like the war on Christmas, like it was initially a racial thing because like we have to there was also like Kwanzaa's a fucking fake holiday and everybody knows Kwanzaa's a fake holiday. But like we have to
Kwanzaa.
have another Christmas tradition or
You're
another
not doing
tradition
Kwanzaa
gearing
this year?
no, fuck Kwanzaa. And like
Okay.
no.
So
Like
it starts on the 26th.
Congratulations. You made Black Hanukkah.
I got my
Hebrew Israelites
I
stay
got
away.
my Yuletide Kool-Aid. I'm good
Got
to
my
go.
Yuletide flavor aid. I got my
Got my Yakub Christmas decoration.
I got my Yakub on the top of my
My
Christmas
my
tree.
egg
I have
nog.
my kosher
Someone say that?
wax candles for my Kwanzaa menorah. Anyways, like I say all this because it's
Be
like
a hoot.
there was a push for another kind of like Jewish-esque holiday during during the winter months. Why? Because again, happy holidays, and we have to disempower for what has been in America since the beginning a white Christian holiday. So
Santa.
no more Merry Christmas. And I
Yeah,
think that there's a group of
that's
people I
exactly
think
right.
in a lot of Christian circles that have recognized or identified that that's the case. But it's the same things, just like with the Birchers versus the neocons, or the paleocons versus the neocons and the establishment right, is that like to be racially aware is to commit the ultimate blasphemy of the 20th century. And that's where we're at.
It
Man,
all began in I
The little
forget what
town of
year.
Bethlehem.
Jekyll Island.
Very
Oh yeah.
true. Very true. I think it was I'm gonna take a wild shot, 1986. Could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
There was they call it the reindeer rule. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. The reindeer rule comes out of the Supreme Court case something v. Donnelly. Lynch v. Donnelly, 1984. And it's called the reindeer rule. What it basically says is the government may acknowledge Christmas religiously only if the context is sufficiently secularized to avoid the appearance of state endorsement of a specific faith. So that is the reindeer rule. So the only time you're allowed to acknowledge a religious version of Christmas is if you do it in a sufficiently secularized way. What does that mean? Nothing. It doesn't mean
Huh.
anything. It means any acknowledgement of Christmas as the birth of Christ falls into the category of possibly being against the law. That's what it does. That's what it means. And really, so it's been literally since 1984, I would say,
Oh my god. Ronald
that
Reagan
we have
really
been
was,
fighting
yeah,
this.
the beginning of it.
Mhm.
You ever watch the film Reindeer Games?
No,
That was a
no.
great film. That was like Gary Sinise was like this psychopath and, you know, I don't know where I'm going with this, but, Charlize Theron was particularly sexy as, like, pretending to be, like, a victim or whatever, but then she was, like, part of the con. I don't know where I'm going with this one, but Reindeer
It's
Games.
funny because like the only secular Christmas movie I kind of like is ironically a really great way at lampooning secular like consumer slop of Christmas time is Jingle All the Way. I think
Yeah.
it is my fucking favorite like Christmas movie that isn't about Christ. That I mean like this the Peanut special, but that's just like he recites Luke, so I really don't care. That movie's great, and it's funny because they really didn't want that to be in the Charlie Brown Christmas special because like Jewish producers, but they managed to get it in anyway, so good for them. But like it's something that I think is particularly interesting where it's like even now it's just like, well, have a good holiday, and it's just like it's become so thoroughly debased or divorced from the aspect of nativity. I mean, like this is why Christmas and Easter are fundamentally the two most important feasts in any Christian tradition is the incarnation of God on earth, and it is the resurrection of the Lord from the dead, and the fundamental basis of the entire Christian religion. And, once you just turn that into, trees and ho 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 and all sorts of stuff, like it loses its purpose, which is of course the religious arguments that have been made for years about the whole war on Christmas deal. And like for Bill O'Reilly, it was like, well, we're a Christian country, and this is like I fuck your holiday cup from Starbucks. Like I'm here because this is what we've always done, and this is where like sort of that boomer truth mindset is kind of based and correct, where it's like, I grew up where we sang hymns and we recognized that Christ is Lord and that he was born and we sang all these things. And now it's like, baby, it's cold outside and nothing actually related to the
And
holiday
Bad Bunny.
and
Baby,
Bad
it's cold
Bunny.
outside and
Like, I
Bad
don't,
Bunny.
yeah. Like, why is this Mexican being like rapey? Like, why is, well, I mean, he's doing that every other day of the week, but I mean, nevertheless, like, it's like, what are we
Oh
doing
my
here?
god.
Okay,
I
so
don't like
I'll
Bad
scratch
Bunny.
you off as being part of the Bad Bunny concert attendance group for the
I will,
Super
yeah, I'll
Bowl.
be there wearing my I support ice truckers cap. I honestly, I think it's what Trump should do to disrupt the Super Bowl in the most watched television event in history. out from like the owners' booths comes President Trump watching the game, and he just gives a slight smile and wave, and then all of a sudden, like, ICE agents come out of like the lower decks during the halftime show.
It's like that scene from
I want
The
him to be
Dark
like
Knight
Bane.
Rises.
I want him to be like exactly. I want him to be like
Yes.
Bane, where he like destroys the fucking like he's just like some of
I
you
think
are willing to die for your cause.
I
And
think
that is
someone
fine
needs
by me.
I think someone needs to go to Australia and pay Doug P a pile of money to have a Death in June Christmas album. We need this. I think it would be great. It would be a great Dime Square cultural victory.
And remember too, like the early parts of the war on Christmas, where it was like, oh well, you should you should go to Starbucks and you should put your name down as Merry Christmas, so they have to say it when you get your holiday. I remember this,
But that's so awesome.
and it was
That's
great.
so
That
It
was
was
funny.
great. That was
That
was such a
Samsung.
good
It was
Yeah.
wonderful.
Griping the Starbucks barista.
Griping
Yeah,
the
that's
Starbucks
the
booth, and then
kind.
the libtards had to have their own gay
Hold
version of
on that
too.
right there. That is the snapshot of mirth in America right there. That is it. That is mirth. That kind of thing is mirth. That's what we need more of. That is so funny. That's genius. That's winning the culture war. That's mirth. That's how we win the culture war for real. We do it mirthfully. And that is it. That is golden. We need more things like that. That is amazing. That's being at the edge of culture. That is and such a almost like a dad joke kind of way. Like you write Merry Christmas on the cup so they have to say it.
Yeah.
Almost has the innocence of a dad joke. It's beautiful.
That's like
That's
when we were
perfect.
signing the tax reform, they're like, English only, please. When it's like the Mexican, the Spanish. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
And see, there were things like that too, where it was very obvious about. I think most American, like white Americans, they won't acknowledge it, but they like subconsciously are irritated as shit when it's like, press 2 for English, or like press 2 for, or like you hear it in Spanish alongside English for whatever reason. Like Americans fucking hate that shit. They do.
Yeah.
They won't name.
I live in
why
Miami.
they
I have
hate
to
it.
barrel through that stuff when
They
I
don't
get.
know why
'cause
they
you
hate it, but they know that they hate it. Because they know that, like, well, and even like my parents, who were very much like they voted for Trump in 2016 for the sole purpose of guns, because they hated Hillary Clinton, and they voted for him again because they liked what he was doing in 2016 about trying to get peace out of Afghanistan and into. But then like all the J6 stuff happened, and my parents kind of got a little psyoped on that, and they were like a little unsure about Trump and the state of the country. And I'm like screaming at them because I'm like, dude, they want to fucking kill you. Like, what are you talking about? Like, how are you like this like unsure where you're like, you don't know what to do with the Republican primary? Like, it is 0 hour. Like, we're going to, and they find me to be like kind of extreme sometimes, which is kind of like entertaining.
Well, we've been right every.
But I'm like, that's how I feel. I feel very
For
confident.
a decade, we've been right.
I've been
the
right.
whole
pretty
way through.
much.
There's no argument to be had. We're
decade,
correct.
we have been correct the whole time.
We don't need the woke right. We don't need the new right. We are the proven right. It's that straightforward. We have been proven right every time, and we shall joyfully smile.
Yeah, directionally. Yeah,
we've been proven right directionally.
Yeah,
directionally. I've gotten hoodwinked. I know that much. But I have basically
I've been on a few
right.
capers.
I've been basically. Oh, you have.
I don't know if
Indeed.
I've been right. Maybe.
Been on a few capers.
Now, Gio, you just went from I've been right all the time too. I don't know if I've ever been right within.
I think it's
2 minutes.
it's healthy to have skepticism in a lot of the things we do, because like one thing that this side of things online is fucking awful at, and I think people really want to admit it even if they don't. A lot of people are fucking terrible at making predictions.
Oh yeah,
most
100%,
people are.
Yeah.
I admire
awful.
people who go, I'm stepping away from making predictions. I lean in. When I get one
double
wrong,
down.
I make 5 more. I do 5 more. Because that's that's how you fish. That's how you fish.
Predictions time.
Let's hear. Let's hear.
December.
Yeah, this is a good way to end this. Let's do a prediction.
What do you guys think is going to happen in 2026?
Like the midterms or just in general?
No, well, you could predict the midterms, but just in general, do you think like the summer of Floyd's coming back? Do you think like something other like a swerve, a curveball is coming? Do you think like one of our, another like right wing influencer is going to crash out? Like, what's going to happen? What do you think is going to
Oh,
happen?
I'm going to preface my answer with something, and then I'm going to pause and then give you a better answer after someone else gives you an answer.
I'll give you a better
Okay?
answer after someone says
Because
something good.
so I'm going to preface this by saying, I don't know if you fellas have followed along on the latest TLE saga, which is my ability to predict things that happen very
Oh
shortly
yeah,
after
I
I
listened to
predict
the
them.
episode. Yeah.
So I'm just saying, not going to say the one that I think is the big one because I'm concerned that I
Make
feel
it
like
happen.
I'm making it happen I feel like maybe I'm tapped into it in a way, but so I'm gonna give you a very general thing. I'm gonna say, I think we are literally looking at another high profile assassination.
Oh
I
yeah, yeah,
think,
that's true.
that's totally on the table, and it's totally gonna be the exact same thing that happened the last time, and whatever you think happened to Charlie Kirk is what you're gonna think happens to the next person who gets got. So that's what I predict. Now, I'm gonna
You're not going to name who,
pause.
are you?
I'm not gonna name who because God forbid. God forbid. I mean, I just don't even want to because
Well,
I've
who do you
become a little
think
bit
might be
superstitious.
it? Who do you think
It's
might be
gonna
it?
be someone who's gonna be easy to get. That's for sure. It's gonna be the same situation as Charlie Kirk, where people are going, "How could this have happened?" Because people still aren't walking around with 20 guys. 20 guys and body armor and bulletproof shields, and so it's gonna be someone who's gonna be easy to get, and it's gonna be someone who's gonna be irreplaceable. It's gonna be a person who's gonna be irreplaceable. I don't know what that means, but that's what I say. So I'm gonna
Alex
pause
Jones?
now. I'm gonna pause now. Nope, you're not getting it out of me. I'm gonna pause now, and I'm gonna go over to
I have a
Prude.
feeling. I think I have a pretty good idea, but I don't want to say it.
No,
Fuentes?
you yeah, see, you
No,
don't wanna say it.
Carlson.
You don't wanna
Well,
say it.
someone almost tried to assassinate Fuentes once. So
I
No,
think twice now.
I think if someone's gonna try, I think that they're gonna try and get Carlson.
But Dino, listen, very
maybe.
seriously, don't wanna manifest this. Prude, what's yours? What's your
I mean, for general predictions for 2026, I think that the big three that I could think of are going to be a very Pyrrhic victory for Republicans to barely hold on to the House, and their House majority is already super slim. They're going to have a serious come to Jesus moment as they realize that they're losing a lot of the Trump coalition, and the main issue will be the economy. Two, I think, as I've talked about earlier in the show, we're going to see the messaging for the left really center around economic populism. That's
Yeah.
not going away at all, and the right is totally unprepared because Trump and everyone else is campaigning for like the boomers. They talk about the stock market and stuff. I think that that's going to be very prevalent in this upcoming election cycle. But I think really the big one too is that there is going to be a scramble for money. And what I mean by that is that like there's going to be a lot of places that you thought were flush with cash that are going to end up being broke, or they're going to end up letting a lot of people go. Like Con Inc. right now is not in a good place financially, and they don't know what to do with it. And so everyone who was hoping that they'd get a handout or hoping that they might get their way in through the door, they're going to realize that those doors are shut, not by any fault of their own, but because there's no fucking money and
you think
things are gonna
Doyle was the last guy to get hired?
for right now, yeah. I know I won't ever get hired by them. I can't even get a fucking DM back from the owner of the company, and we're mutuals on Twitter. I mean, like, but I don't say that resentfully. I just kind of know that, like, the question, like, in the midst of Kirk's loss, he's irreplaceable. And so, like, the get out to vote guy is missing, the fundraising guy is missing, but also, like, a lot of people already left the Blaze. You know, like, Matt Peterson's not there, and they're trying to do their own things now. The Claremont Institute is probably the
TLE
only
never
thing.
got a call, so I have no loyalty
I've
to
never
Yeah,
them.
gotten.
I will never get a
Well, I have a story that I will tell off the air because I don't want to get in trouble. But I I think that that's going to be the three big ones. Is that there's going to be a scramble for money. Economic populism is going to be more popular on the left than ever as the economy continues to worsen. There probably will be an assassination attempt. I hope it's not on Tucker Carlson, but there'll be more. Hopefully not on the president. But yeah, I think that's just sort of the general vibe of things, and that the current set of the online right is fundamentally unprepared for the next vibe shift.
Yes, I agree.
What's
And
yours,
whoever
Gio?
succeeds us will blow us out of the fucking water.
Oh boy. I don't know. I think that depending on how bad the winter is in Europe, I think that the Ukraine war has a good chance of wrapping up late next year, or at least achieving a 2015 Donetsk stalemate as the AFU. If Russia manages to achieve a strategic victory in a lot of different places at once, the AFU is running out of gas, and I think like a lot of European nations, my fear is that they want to drag in other countries like Poland and Latvia into the war and create a situation where America can't just sit by and not do anything besides giving them more arms and more resources and more intelligence.
I recall
So
hearing recently that Zelensky may not even win a re-election. Is that slop that I've heard? Do you know
I
anything
think
about that?
Zelensky is going to run for the prime minister of Israel. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That was a joke on War Report. That's a joke on War Report. No, I think
He's got to
Netanyahu is
stay in
fucked.
power, because if he doesn't, someone's gonna whack him.
Yeah, it won't. It will probably be like an ultranationalist. It'll probably be like an Azovite.
Someone, yeah, I was gonna say someone
Somebody.
further to the blood and soil of him
Yes,
will definitely
I
try and oust him.
I think that Netanyahu is pretty much fucked politically. There's a lot of huge factions of Israeli society that want him gone, and so I think that that's dangerous because they might actually contemplate doing something like bombing Iran again. So I think like there has been a lot of legalistic and social ruminations against the Likud party. I don't want to make a hard and fast prediction because, of course, Netanyahu's been there for a long time. But I do think that the political situation in a lot of these different countries are reaching a point of instability. And the problem, though, with both like the Middle East being like more or less a non issue and Ukraine going away is that a lot of hawks in the American administration would want to pivot to China again. And I think like going after the Chinese would be, in times of economic instability in particular, would be a huge disaster. And not that I'm not like a China shill. I'm not a cinephile or anything. I'm not like Patrick Starr, whoever
They haven't sent me $7,000 either.
they haven't. No, they haven't. I
No
would be, but
Chinaman
like,
ever gave me $7,000.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. So no, but I do think that strategically going after China, like their fantasy of like preventing a Chinese economic dominance is, I understand like the thing about like, obviously if you're an American, you want to have that position of being the global superpower. But I think that to risk a global war with China is like incredibly stupid for a variety of
Well,
reasons.
you know why that prediction
Could be
has some
good for the
legs?
show.
Yeah.
Do you know what the Davidson window is?
I've heard of this, but explain.
Okay,
I'm a
so
fuzzy in the
Davidson window is a coin term because of Rear Admiral Davidson, who was like at the time I think like the head of like U.S. Pacific Comm for the U.S. Navy, and
Mm,
he'd given his prediction that like if the Chinese were going to do anything to take Taiwan, they're going to do it in 2027. Like that's the earliest window that they have
mm. Oh,
before.
Xiping's getting older as well. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think he's got. I mean, I think he has solidified his power base that he'll be there till he dies. I think he's already got a success.
I think he'll live to 140 and he'll gradually
Oh
become
yeah.
golden.
That could be it too.
That could be
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
He really could be the
Yeah.
guy. But
I'd
like,
never say a bad thing about the guy, honestly. I would never do that.
but no
I also think
$7,000. How's change?
there will be
Yeah.
political legitimacy crisis in Europe, and I don't know what's going to happen in Canada, but we'll see what happens. But I think in terms of like the culture though in America, it's kind of looking bad because the millennial left is going to ride off the momentum of any victory the Democrats achieve in 2026. And so I think that a lot of like right-wing memes are going to go away and a lot of people are going to get fucked if the Trump administration doesn't write the chorus and actually get its act together in ways that are not just like, trust the plan, they're doing things in secret. So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to make any solid prediction, but the whole Ukraine thing, I mean, it's been 3 years, almost 4 years. And I think
Time
that,
to wrap that one up.
Yeah, it's time to wrap it up. Yeah.
Not
needs a
really.
good
I
season
think
finale.
we honestly we eked about 2 episodes of content out of that one, and it could have wrapped up a long time ago. If I was the
Well, what else
president, I would have
yeah.
wrapped it up a long time ago.
What else were you gonna say, Prude? I think
I was just like that the war needs a good season/series finale.
yeah.
Mhm.
It needs a good
Yeah.
narrative ending, because it
Yes.
can't be one of those things where, like, you can reboot it every 5 years, but they're odds are, let's face it, like, any sort of peace agreement, I feel like the sort of proposed borders or, like, the Donetsk region is just gonna turn into fucking the West Bank or,
Yeah.
like, this really weird Korean-style DMZ. Like, it doesn't matter what ends, like, there's gonna be some ultra-nationalist terrorist group on either side that wants to, open up that front again.
Yeah, like in 2014, yeah.
Yeah, like it's not. I don't think like you can have a quote unquote an official peace, but like, cool, you've just made a Slavic version of Gaza and Israel. And what's worse, of course, is like it much like Israel and Gaza, like there's just going to be a shit ton of Eastern European influence now, in the same way that there's a lot of Israeli influence. I mean, it's all the same people, but like I feel like that's just like the real tragedy out of that entire.
Oh, Ukraine's fucked.
Yeah.
Either way, Ukraine is
Yeah.
economically and socially and materially fucked. I mean, no, the people that moved out, they're not going to come back, and they will be sort of like a European, whatever, like Western Ukraine is. If they do get absorbed into NATO, they're going to be like a poverty, like charity case state for a long time. Unfortunately,
They'll be like Russia in the 90s.
no, exactly, because you have to realize that a lot of places in Eastern Europe, like Moldova, Ukraine, Romania to an extent, although, I mean, Poland's doing relatively well, although they have problems with Ukrainian migrants. A lot of these places, they haven't experienced the same levels of trying to do better than the collapse of the Soviet Union. And a lot of them are subject to like corrupt oligarchs, and they haven't like modernized to the same extent. And so Ukraine is going to be left in the situation where, yeah, they basically will kind of be like Russia in the 90s. And it's terrible. And so I think a lot of people on both sides are looking at the war, and there's slowly a creeping realization that, the Russians can withstand further attacks, and the material and the resources of the men, it's not looking good. But then you never know. Like, I mean, it will be definitely some type of militarized zone. And if it sparks up in a few years, I mean, nobody wants it to spark up in a few years. That's
No.
if it sparks up in a few years, the West is
No,
going to
it's
get involved.
yeah, it's just not. It's over. It's got to end. Got to end.
Yeah.
Oof.
So
That was a marathon, fellas.
whoa,
good.
it was great.
That was a
We
real
have to do
marathon.
this
This
again.
was oh, we certainly must. This was years in the making. The listeners have been clamoring for this one, and I think it's safe to say we've done it. This one might
Edged them,
change the
we're
world.
giving them- Yeah. We've edged them, and they're getting their payoff. They're getting their money shot right now.
That's right. They are. You better enjoy it, listeners, because that's it. I'm not doing 12 Days of Birdmas ever again, but enjoy it. I want to end it right there. Imagine if I just ended the episode
No,
right there.
Shit. Yeah.
I
No, you're
shall,
gonna
I
do it
shall.
again. You're gonna do it again. Don't worry about
I shall. Well,
it.
I may have to.
We should do a Christmas special.
We should.
You guys don't do a Christmas special?
We do.
We
Well, because
should.
what we usually end up doing is we end up doing a birthday special because our birthdays are on the same day and it's on the 23rd.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. Do some
Yeah.
kind of like combo thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do a big combo birthday. Well,
So,
happy birthday.
Are
Let's
we,
all
are
say
we, are we
happy
off the air?
birthday. No, we're going to go off the air in just a minute.
Okay,
Give me your plugs
I'll wait
first.
to tell my
Let's get
story.
some plugs. Fruit, give me your plugs first.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Theprudentialist.substack.com. Look anywhere where you can find this frog. Of course, Gio and I take turns hosting the Digital Archipelago on YouTube. We're on all podcast platforms. Best way to financially support me, subscribestar.com/theprudentialist. Go look for the frog there. That's where you can find me. Findmyfriends.net/theprudentialist is all of my links. I'm on Twitter. I'm best known for that It's Friday Night post where you're dancing to the metro stations,
awesome.
Shake It. It's a fun bit to do.
So good.
But yeah, I mainly
Yeah.
cover culture and a lot of media studies and in history, especially conceptual history. Those are probably like the three biggest things I cover. And alongside the show I do with Gio, I have another Canadian friend, Dimes from Blood Satellite, great friends of the show. Dimes and I host a podcast called Do You Even Read? It is the only pro e-literacy podcast on the e-right. We cover all the books that the audience wants us to. We actually take the time to read them to the audience, cover the main points. And we've covered everything from spinal catastrophism to that retard Walter Rodney. So if you're in for a good time and want to actually find some fun literature, that's where you can find me.
Wow. That sounds good. That's another major crossover in the making, by the way. I got to get Dimes on here.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Gio, your plugs.
Everything can be found in my link tree, YouTube, Giant Productions, Patreon. If you want to support me, $5 a month, I do a content-minded podcast. And also, I'm starting to branch off into painting videos. And if our certain other Canadian friend gets his act together, I'll be able to sell my art directly. But, patreon.com/Giant Productions, substack.com/Shio's Content Corner. Both of them are only $5 a month for hours upon hours of exclusive content and theory selling, and hope soon art videos as well. And yeah, but you can find me on Twitter and Instagram and Telegram and all that stuff. And that's been great, man. So yeah,
Powerful. Powerful. Well, thank you, fellas. This was a legendary one, and Merry Christmas. Listeners,
Merry Christmas.
this may be the first one. This may be the inaugural one, but we may be halfway through Birdmas. Either way, happy 12 days of Birdmas, and we're working our way up towards Merry Christmas here. And I'm telling you, it's going to be a good one. This is going to be a Christmas of wonder. So thank you, fellas. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having us on, and Merry Christmas.